Ousted Maduro also left travelers stranded in the Caribbean. ABC's Gio Benitez says U.S. airlines are working to get people back home.
Hundreds of flights were canceled on Saturday, and now we're talking about these airlines adding more flights to get those stranded passengers out. So American Airlines is one of the biggest carriers in the Caribbean, and they told us overnight that they've added an extra 43 flights. That's a total of 7,000 extra seats. And starting today, they're actually adding inter-island flights to San Juan, Puerto Rico for the first time in over a decade. Delta adding 2,600 extra seats as well.
There is no official count for the number of people stranded at the moment. Utah leaders are reacting to the arrest of Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro. KSL News Radio's Brianna Willis reports.
Hours after the capture of Maduro, Senator John Curtis posted on social media site X he's seen the amount of human suffering caused by the Maduro regime and called it, quote, failed authoritarian socialism, end quote, and said he would expect a full and timely briefing on the impact of the arrest. Senator Mike Lee posted saying after speaking with Secretary Marco Rubio, Trump's actions likely fall under the president's authority to protect from an imminent attack.
Senator Lee initially posted questioning the constitutionality of capturing Maduro without an official declaration of war. Your money at this moment, the Dow is up 650 points. That's 1.33% to 49,033. Coming up, the weather and the traffic. Well, the weather affecting the traffic, especially in the canyons. We'll check it coming up next. KSL News Time, 9:01.
The sources where we get our news matters.
When you listen to Utah's Morning News, we want you to feel the stories are important to you and trustworthy. This is Amanda Dixon.
And I'm Andy Farnsworth. Join us weekday mornings on KSL News Radio.
Between all the holiday parties,
weekend tailgates,
and family get-togethers,
we've been overindulging a little more than usual over the holidays. But now, we are starting the new year off on a healthier note by taking Active Liver supplements from New Nordic every day.
Active Liver contains a powerful blend of turmeric, milk thistle, and globe artichoke extract, all natural ingredients that help protect the liver so that it can protect you from toxins. It's like giving my body a daily detox. I've never felt better, and my energy is through the roof.
And my doctor is already impressed with how much better my numbers are looking. So if better health, more energy, and detoxing your body are some of your priorities this year, get Active Liver today and start the year off knowing you're giving your liver some well-deserved relief.
Active Liver is available online at Amazon or NewNordicUSA.com. Or pick some up today at your local CVS, ShopRite, Meijer Grocery. Are now available at Wegmans. New year, new you, new Nordic.
Is your financial advisor offering you up to a 30% upfront bonus? Or are they promising you up to 10% growth per year, all for your retirement income? If not, then you need to come to Trajan Wealth. I'm Jeff Jr., founder of Trajan Wealth. If you have a plan to retire within the next 10 years, don't wait only to find out it's too late. I've seen hardworking folks like you retire only to be required to go back to work, all because their advisor told them guarantees like these were too good to be true. They're not. That's up to $30,000 upfront or up to $10,000 per year on $100,000, all guaranteed for retirement income. Don't keep working when you're supposed to be retired, and don't let any financial advisor tell you it's too good to be true. Call Trajan today, 801-207-9900. That's 801-207-9900.
Annuities, not advisory products. DBA Trajan Wealth Insurance Solutions. Additional disclosures at TrajanWealth.com.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by, it's time for a check of traffic and weather together. Now let's check in with Aubrey Wuthridge.
Well, right now, Parley's Canyon is still at a crawl if you're coming from Highway 40 over to about the golf course on the westbound side of things. The eastbound side of things, it's slow from the mouth of the canyon all the way over to Highway 40. That's just due to earlier crashes and snowfall through that area. I think you do still have to have chains and four-wheel drive if you want to go through there. Same with Big and Little Cottonwood Canyons. You need chains or four-wheel drive to get there as well. If you're trying to get to Big Cottonwood Canyon on Wasatch Boulevard, northbound or southbound, heading over to that intersection, it's very slow through that area. I think everyone's just trying to get up into the resorts right now. Northbound I-15 looking slow from the point of the mountain over into Draper, and then southbound I-15 from Murray into Midville. That's slow through that stretch. And then the further down you get near I-80 into downtown Salt Lake City, you'll see a little bit of slowing there as well. The rest of the main freeways or highways into Salt Lake City looking good. A little bit of slowing still if you're coming out of Eagle Mountain on 2100 North, heading over to I-15. Common Spirit, hospitals, clinics, and caregivers all connected to advanced healthcare in Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Healthcare with Human Kindness is here. Hello, Human Kindness. I'm Aubrey Withrich in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, the snow is back and hitting hard in Parley's Canyon right now. Today's going to be mostly cloudy in the valleys with scattered rain showers and thunderstorms through the morning, and the rain expected to continue into the afternoon. Highs in the upper 40s. Right now it's 43 degrees in Salt Lake. I'm Andy Farnsworth from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
The all-new Inside Sources. Your inside access to the people and policies shaping Utah's future. Here are Greg Skordas and Holly Richardson on KSL News Radio.
Good morning and Happy New Year. We're back, walking in the new year with no shortage of news.
Yippee!
Saturday morning, the United States captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, and he is scheduled to appear in a New York court today at 10 o'clock. If he does, we may break to that. But he and his wife, Celia Flores, are both charged, as are other individuals from Venezuela, with what they're calling narco-terrorism, which is basically distributing drugs, narcotics, in a trafficking way, in a way that a conspiracy, if you will. It's a very, very serious charges. It's just that the way that this unfolded is so bizarre. And we want to talk about just how he was captured. This is ABC Chief Global Affairs Correspondent Martha Raddatz on how the operation unfolded.
This was a very bold and very risky mission with just astonishing coordination. In the dead of night, you had 150 warplanes. Now, these were all in support of nearly a dozen special operations helicopters carrying that extraction team, which included the Army's Delta Force. The CIA had a covert team on the ground in Venezuela for months, tracking Maduro's every move. It was an astonishing move to go after him at this compound, which was on a military installation. He had moved around some, but they knew he was in that safe house.
And I don't see how you could pull something like this off, Holly, without somebody internally helping you out. And it's clear that the CIA did have somebody within Maduro's inner circle that was helping them out with this.
Is that clear? I don't know.
It is to me. I mean, they had a mock-up of his dwelling, of the place where he was staying.
So I would not underestimate our intelligence either.
Right. So I mean, they knew which doors to open. They knew where the doors were. They had practiced over and over. I mean, this is the stuff of a movie someday when they talk about how he was taken into custody. Now, that sort of begs the question, which was, is this even legal? I mean, is this appropriate? Because it is. You couldn't even imagine somebody coming into the United States, another nation, and taking one of our political leaders into custody and then taking off. I mean, that would just be impossible to even think about. But it happened in Venezuela, and we saw a number of, it looked like sort of bombings and some things that were going on. I think they were trying to take out their air defense forces as they were coming in with the U.S. aircraft, making sure that they didn't suffer attacks from the Venezuelan military. They did that. From what we're hearing, no U.S. serviceman or U.S. agent involved in this operation was hurt at all. Was killed. There were 6 injured, but none were killed.
However,
there's
there
something
were 80 people right now that were killed in these in the raid, I guess.
Yeah. So you have to wonder at what cost you take into account when you're taking somebody into custody. You know, if you have to kill 80 to arrest 1 or 2 in this case, is that really appropriate?
Well,
but what they were saying is that they had to take out their military installations, although there apparently were some civilians killed as well.
There were 32, at least Cuba is claiming that 32 of their civilians were killed in this raid. And then certainly there are photos online of some of the damage done to neighboring apartment buildings and things where entire walls collapsed, right? So this wasn't just an in and out. I think I read it was 2.5 hours to finally get them to agree to surrender, right? That they were asleep in their beds, but it still was 2.5 hours before they decided that they were going to go.
Right. It appeared that there wasn't much of a resistance from the Venezuelans. I mean, if no U.S. service members were killed, and a couple were injured, it appears that there wasn't a high degree of defense going on. Or maybe they were just caught off guard, or maybe the U.S. presence was so overwhelming that the Venezuelan authorities didn't think it was worth the fight. I don't know. So you would think there would be much more of a resistance, is what I'm saying.
I'm looking at an NBC News story that is tracking like the timeline, and there are multiple news organizations that have put out a timeline, but this one starts with a phone call from President Trump to Nicolas Maduro last week, about a week ago, telling him, look, you've got to surrender. At that point, we already had warships off of Venezuela's shores. We had a CIA team that had been in the country since the summer. And he said that he wasn't going to leave, right? He's not going to leave. So they said they called this operation Absolute Resolve, the most audacious military action in either of Trump's terms. So this one started, again, before the summer, right, as early as August. And then you have elite troops who trained using a replica of the presidential compound based on intelligence the U.S. had gathered, the same way troops who killed Osama bin Laden practiced in 2011.
How is it that Maduro and his wife get a call from the president, we need you to respond? They see a fleet of U.S. ships moving into their harbor. They're told repeatedly that we're coming after you, and he's sitting in his house, even if he is in his compound. Did he think that there was such a high degree of security there? Did he have like an escape route or something? I mean, it's just, I'm surprised he wasn't, why he was even still in the capital city surprises me, that he would be so bold.
He must not have taken him seriously, right? Or either thought he did have enough security forces, or that the president was just blustering, right? And that he didn't need to take him seriously. So obviously, President Trump was serious. And it's interesting. It's something that has caused, I think, international concern. Certainly, we've seen the UN has issued a statement. The top UN official warned America that they may have violated international law. So that's UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, said he remains deeply concerned that rules of international law have not been respected with regard to the January 3rd military action, and said that could affect how future relations happen between the U.S. and other countries.
And it's odd because that's exactly true, that you look at this and you wonder, what were the U.S. authorities thinking, except that this Nicolas Maduro was such a bad man. I mean, he had been involved in such a high level of corruption. He even lost the election in 2024 and refused to leave, it seemed like.
I think that two things can be true. I think that people can agree that Maduro is a bad dude, and I think people can also rightly be concerned about what kind of message this sends, right, to the rest of the world, especially when the president goes on to threaten other countries. Cuba, for one, Greenland again. He's threatened them again. He told Colombia, the neighboring country, that they better be aware of what was happening and, be on guard. I think it's fair for people to say both things can be true.
And you have to wonder at what point the end justifies the means. I mean, you want to take a bad man into custody. Does that mean that you're allowed to go into his or her country, use military force, kill 80 people at least, and to hook him up? I mean, I don't know. And you wonder what the reaction, and we'll talk more about this later, of Congress was, and of other people on the ground here in the United States going, well, wait a minute, we weren't put in the loop, and Trump saying we couldn't put you in the loop because there's too many leaks,
right?
And
Marco Rubio said, look, this isn't something that we needed to go to Congress for because it wasn't an act of war; it was a legal proceeding underneath the Department of Justice, the DOJ. So we're going to talk more about the legal analysis on those charges, and we're going to talk about what people are saying about whether it was legal or not. And there are mixed opinions. I think that's clear, right? People have mixed opinions, and people have changed their mind already, including Utah Senator Mike Lee.
Right, who had some questions about it, but
feels like constitutionality.
Feels like his questions have been answered.
That's right. So we're going to talk about that when we come back.
If you're ready to buy a home or sell a home and you're worried about the current real estate market because of what you've heard from some of your friends or family, well, we're here to tell you that you really shouldn't be worried because now is a great time to buy and sell with our friends at the Stern Team, powered by Almada Real Estate.
And here's why. Buyers have more options due to increased inventory, which gives them the power to negotiate for repairs, interest rate buy-downs, and closing cost assistance. While at the same time, sellers are still getting top dollar for their homes, with home values that are higher today than ever before. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, the current real estate market presents a win-win opportunity for both buyers and sellers.
But you still do want to make sure that you're working with a team of real estate experts you can trust that can get you some great results. And that's our friends at the Stern Team, powered by Almada Real Estate.
They have helped thousands of Salt Lake City homeowners, and they're ready to help you. To get started, just go to thesternteam.com. That's thesternteam.com, or Google The Stern Team.
Who is Farm Bureau Financial Services? At our core, we're relationship builders. We're home and auto bundlers, life insurers, farm and ranch protectors, and retirement planners. We're neighbors, community members, and friends. We're the people you can count on now and for years to come. Find a Farm Bureau agent at fbfs.com/protect. Farm Bureau Property and Casualty Insurance Company, Western Agricultural Insurance Company, Farm Bureau Life Insurance Company.
At Trio South Ogden, the best years aren't behind you. They're right here. Discover independent living services that embrace aging as an opportunity to lean in, not step back, to pursue passions, not retire from purpose. Here, life is bright, colorful, and unapologetically fun. Because aging doesn't mean changing who you are. It means having more time to be exactly who you are. Schedule your tour today at triosouthodden.com.
Hi, it's Tori DeVito. In every family, small conversations can make a big impact. I grew up on tour with my parents. Kind of different, but we bonded over music just like other families do over sports, camping, or other interests. And we talked. Little everyday conversations from silly to serious that built a foundation over time. Honest conversations, like when my dad shared his experiences as an alcoholic.
Your honesty about that part of your life gave me a sense of integrity that I wanted to uphold in my own life. And I was so grateful that you and Mom had become these sober, stable people who were always there for me.
I wanted you to know from someone who's been in recovery more than 30 years now that hard work is what creates success, not alcohol or other drugs, whether it's music or anything else. I said it a lot, and I'm glad you took it to heart.
Talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
I'm Ed Evans, CEO of Consumer Cellular. No, we're not one of the big guys. Truth is, we don't want to be. If you're over 50, Big Wireless probably has you paying for more data than you might need. You could be throwing away thousands over a lifetime.
Our entry-level data plans start at just $20 a month. And for a limited time, switch and get your second month free. Call 1-888-FREEDOM, visit consumercellular.com or a store near you and get your second month free today. Plans include $5 credit for auto pay and e-billing. See site for additional details.
This is the story of the one. As an HVAC technician, he and his digital multimeter are in high demand. So when a noisy office HVAC turns out to be a failing blower motor, he doesn't break a sweat. With Grainger's easy-to-use website and product information, he selects the product he needs to keep everything humming right along. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Do you worry about how much someone drinks?
Do you feel angry or depressed most of the time? Do you feel neglected or unloved?
Do you feel you attract people who tend to be compulsive or abusive?
Do you have money problems because of someone else's drinking?
Are you afraid or embarrassed to bring your friends home?
Do you feel that if the drinker loved you, she or he would stop drinking?
If you answered yes to any of these questions, you are not alone.
More than half of all adults have a family history of alcoholism.
Not everyone trapped by alcohol is an alcoholic.
Families and friends are suffering too. Al-Anon and Alateen can help. Call 1-866-200-0223 or visit al-anon.org/help.
Over the years, you've brought opioids into your home. They helped when you were in pain, and you held on to them just in case. But holding on to opioids puts your family at risk. Learn more at www.fda.gov/drug disposal.
Inside Sources.
Wow, this is the stuff of movies, and probably will be some sort of movie someday, but former now president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, is in custody in New York with his wife, Cecilia Flores, waiting for a court hearing, which will supposedly take place in about 40 minutes, on weapons and narcotics charges. He was indicted by a Southern District of New York grand jury, it looks like about a year ago. He and his wife and several others, it looked like there are about a half dozen names on this indictment, people from the country of Venezuela involved in importation of, it looks like mostly cocaine, into the United States. It's also interesting they're charged with possession of machine guns, which is illegal in the United States. But I don't know if it's illegal in Venezuela.
That is interesting. Look, there's so much to unpack here that for our listeners, you have to know that we're trying to pick and choose between like 2,000 news stories, right?
Right.
I mean, there's so many different angles. One of them, I think, is the legal angle, right? Does the U.S. have the right to do this? Well, they did it, right? Does that actually give them the right? If you say might makes right. I mean, one of the things I think that we're seeing coming out of Capitol Hill is there were people who, on both sides of the aisle, who are not happy with this, and there are people on both sides of the aisle who do say, I think this was a good move. But it also begs the question of how is Maduro different than the president of Honduras? Because they were both charged with, in Manhattan, by the way, with corrupting their governments. They were charged with using state power to import hundreds of tons of cocaine into the United States. And by the way, there's plenty of information to say that cocaine from Venezuela is actually going to Europe more than it is to the U.S. But the former president of Honduras, Juan Orlando Hernandez, was pardoned last month by President Trump, even though he faced basically the same charges that Maduro is facing.
One word. Oil. I mean,
oil.
Let's get to the. I mean, and actually, I think if Americans understood that this was more about oil than a corrupt president who's committing crimes in the United States, they might be a little more sympathetic. But the administration won't go to that word except to say big oil is going to, have more freedom now in the country of Venezuela. But that's a significant difference. And Venezuela is not the kind of country you just go into and take over like we did. So, ostensibly in Panama.
So Venezuela has still about 28 million people who live there. But I have to tell you my personal experience with Venezuela. So I have done a lot of work with refugees, and Venezuela has some 8 million people who have left the country. They're considered economic refugees because of the economy that Maduro crashed. I think there's no question that Maduro's a bad dude, man.
Right.
There's also other bad dudes around the country. Like, we're not going in and extracting Putin. I mean, I think there's an argument to be made that he is a bad guy.
That he's worse than Nicolas Maduro, right?
He has a lot more security around him, but there's lots of other things to talk about that. I think there's no question that Maduro was not a good person. He's really, really not. But when I went to Colombia, the country right next door, and we were working right on the border with caminantes, so people who were walking from Venezuela into Colombia seeking economic opportunity. And Colombia is not exactly a nation that is wealthy by any means, right? But they were better off. And I remember talking with a father who left his wife, who was very, very pregnant with their fifth child. She was like 8.5 months pregnant when he finally decided to leave. And he said, the reason I felt like we had to leave was when I saw my children picking up dried dog poop to eat because they were so hungry. And exactly, right? And he was really, really animated against Maduro. And this was in 2020 because this was right before the world shut down with the pandemic. I was in a different country.
And a lot of people, there's not a lot of people that are shedding many tears for Nicolas Maduro right now. But you also have to follow the law. And there's two sets of laws here without getting too deep into it. There's international law, which this act by the United States almost certainly violated. There's also federal law, the United States law, which this act by the United States probably followed. You know what I mean?
It's interesting, yeah.
So there's two sets of laws. One we probably violated. If you consider that the UN treaty has that the United States signed on to has rules of engagement with respect to going into other countries, taking prisoners, that type of thing, without some prior consent by the United Nations. You just don't do that. I'm sure that they're going to be scolded. I'm sure there's going to be a referendum in the United Nations deploring the United States. But under U.S. law, if Maduro makes a motion to dismiss his case based on an illegal detention or illegal action by the United States, I think he's got a real uphill battle.
It's really interesting. So Senator Mike Lee, the senior senator from Utah, he first tweeted or posted on X, "I look forward to learning what, if anything, might constitutionally justify this action in the absence of a declaration of war or authorization for the use of military force." And then a little while later, he posts that he just got off the phone with Secretary Marco Rubio, who basically said the action falls within the president's inherent authority under Article 2 of the Constitution, which really outlines executive authority to protect U.S. personnel from an actual or imminent attack. I wonder about that. I'm not an attorney. You are, but U.S. personnel wouldn't have been under imminent attack if they were not there in the capital of Venezuela.
And in another sort of related situation, some federal courts have shut down the administration's attempt to deploy federal forces within our own country. I think Chicago, Los Angeles, and some
right,
others,
exactly,
where they're saying, wait a minute, this isn't an imminent attack. So this Rubio, I think, is basically saying this is a police action, not a military action. In other words, this wasn't an act of war.
Yeah, he said it was law enforcement.
It was the military. Yep. This is executing a warrant. We have an individual who is wanted in our country for serious charges. His wife is wanted for serious charges, and we have the right to bring him into our country. Now, a lot of countries have what they call extradition treaties with the United States where they agree to do that. Of course, even if there was an extradition treaty, and I can't imagine that Venezuela has one, they weren't going to surrender their president to us any more than
right.
we would to them with a similar treaty. I mean, it's just not going to happen. So he's given numerous warnings. He's told that we're coming after you. He's taken into custody really without a lot of fanfare. And he's going to be in court here in about 30 minutes to answer to the charges. And this is a 4-count federal indictment. I'm looking at the superseding indictment. It's 30 pages long because it describes the conduct, the underlying the conduct that he and his wife were engaged in this enterprise. Because if it involves the sale of drugs, the sale of and the distribution of cocaine, you can't imagine that the president of Venezuela is selling cocaine in the United States. But if you look at this indictment, he and his wife were involved in it. They actually accepted bribes from the individuals that were doing this. According to this indictment, he's obviously presumed innocent, but he's up to his ears in this involvement. But then you talk about what happened with the Honduran president,
right? Exactly,
sort of the exact same charges, and he gets pardoned by the president just recently, not long ago.
Yeah. Look, we have several texters. I just want to read some of them.
Sure.
One of them says, if President Trump's concern was moral or ethical about those leaders, why don't we sneak in and arrest Putin? Another one says, the interesting question is why President Trump thinks the person elected president is not qualified to be president of her own country. And that is a really interesting question because now that Maduro is gone, in fact, you mentioned it, that he lost the election to the opposition. The opposition leader is not the person that Trump supported to be sworn in. It was Maduro's vice president who's now sworn in.
Yeah, and Maria Machado arguably won the election.
Right.
But Maduro's vice president is the one who's now taking over.
Right.
Delia Rodriguez.
Yeah, and what's interesting, I think, about that is, according to reports coming out of the Washington Post, is that President Trump was angry that the opposition leader got the Nobel Peace Prize when he thought he should have gotten it. But whatever the reason, if he wasn't elected, if Maduro wasn't duly elected, then it would have been the opposition leader, and yet she's not the one who's leading the country. And then we have another one that says the Maduro operation certainly was controversial, but how many lives will be saved now that he isn't facilitating millions of tons of illegal drugs being smuggled not just to the U.S. but around the world, and states that he's one of the most brutal dictators in the world. And then there's another one, I'm sorry, but there are lots of bad leaders across the world. Taking the Venezuelan president makes us no better than Vladimir Putin. This was simply a grab for all of Venezuela's natural resources. Trump needs to be fired, says this texter.
Yeah, I mean, boy, this is really interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out in terms of the legality of it, the court proceedings, and the international response to this. When we come up next, Salt Lake County Council member Carlos Moreno, who is from Venezuela and has first-hand experience with the Venezuelan government, will talk about his reaction to this capture when we come back.
Email from school about the incident today.
Scary.
You know, teachers like me, parents, we don't always know as much as you guys do about what's going on with other kids.
Half the time, it's rumors.
Yeah, but if you're ever concerned about a friend who's having trouble with alcohol, prescription drugs, anything, you need to tell an adult, someone you know and trust. That can be hard, but speaking up about a problem is what helping a friend is all about.
For more information, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
9:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Andy Farnsworth. KSL's top story this hour. The U.S. has captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, but some criticize the approach. Assistant Professor of Democracy and Global Affairs at the Keough School of Notre Dame, Laura Gamboa, agrees that Maduro not being in power is good for Venezuelans, but doesn't think taking him by force was the best approach.
The odds of a sustained peaceful democracy are higher when the removal of the dictatorship happens via some kind of negotiation or elections or something of the sort. When this happens forcefully, the odds of a transition to democracy or long-standing peace are significantly harder.
President Donald Trump says he will designate some people to run Venezuela for the time being, but it's unclear what that will look like. Overnight, President Trump reaffirmed that the United States is in control of Venezuela. ABC's Lionel Moise has more.
Trump last night issuing stark warnings to other countries.
Colombia is very sick, too, run by a sick man who likes making cocaine and selling it to the United States. And he's not going to be doing it very long, let me tell you.
And Mexico.
Mexico has to get their act together.
The president was also asked about Cuba, where the economy has been supported by Venezuela for decades.
Cuba looks like it's ready to fall.
Many there now fear the U.S. could take military action in Cuba as well.
The president also expressed his interest in the U.S. taking over Greenland. Your money at this moment, the Dow is up 650 points. That's 1.33% to 49,033. Coming up, we've got snow affecting your drive through Parley's Canyon. We'll check traffic and weather together next. KSL News Time is 9:32.
Mornings are for recharging.
And they're for starting your day right.
We volunteer to join you in the car. Get news and weather at 102.7 FM during the most important part of your day.
Andy and Amanda, each morning between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
You know, most diets will help you lose a few pounds, but Soda weight loss will help you lose years. I lost 37 pounds on the Soda weight loss program 3 years ago, and I feel younger than I've felt in decades. And it's not because of how I look, it's because of how I feel.
But you do look younger,
Thank
too.
you.
I let go of 70 pounds in 5 months, and then I looked at the before and after pictures of myself and was like, wow.
It's something when you don't have to carry all of that excess weight around. And I was at a stage in my life where I didn't want to add drugs to my regimen. I wanted to reduce the number of medications I had to take. So the nutritionist at Soda Weight Loss taught me how to have a healthy relationship with food.
And it was so helpful that I could text my nutritionist anytime I wanted to for advice, which helped me learn what I needed to know so that I could keep it off. And right now, this is the perfect time to join, because if you join now, your partner joins for free. It's the perfect gift for both of you.
It's at Soda Weight Loss.
SOTAweightloss.com, because soda is, say it with me, Amanda, state of the art.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma. I love you too.
Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
Traffic and weather together now on KSL News Radio. Let's check in with Aubrey Wuthridge.
Rough drive this morning. If you're coming through Parley's Canyon, we have lots of snow, and we've had a bunch of crashes up there this morning as well. So you're going to have a really slow drive if you're traveling from Highway 40 over to Mountain Dell Golf Course. And then if you're going eastbound, same story there from the golf course over to Highway 40. Highway 40 is also looking pretty slow and slick right now as well. So just give yourself some time if you're up in the mountains right now. In the valley, we have rain, so you will see some slowdowns if you're traveling northbound I-15 in Draper, and we do have a crash. This is on 215 eastbound in Cottonwood Heights near 1700 East. It's over to the right shoulder, but still causing a little bit of slowing through that area. If you're trying to get into Big or Little Cottonwood Canyon right now, you will have to have a four-wheel drive or chains. And if you're on Wasatch Boulevard trying to get into Big Cottonwood Canyon, that's looking really slow if you're traveling northbound or southbound there. We also had an earlier crash in Lehigh on 2100 North. It looks like it's still causing some slowdowns near 2300 West. Homeowners, Gillette Services is putting $1,000 in your pockets with rebate on new installations, and you pay nothing until 2027. Call 385-GET-HEAT for your free estimate. Comfort now, pay later. I'm Aubrey Wuthridge in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather today. We've got snow in the mountains, rain in the valleys right now. Those scattered rain showers and thunderstorms expected into the afternoon. Highs will sit only in the upper 40s. Right now, though, it is 43 degrees in Salt Lake City. I'm Andy Farnsworth from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at KSLNewsRadio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
The all-new Inside Sources. Your inside access to the people and policies shaping Utah's future. Here are Greg Skordas and Holly Richardson on KSL News Radio.
We're continuing our coverage of the really interesting and bizarre arrest of Venezuelan President, former now Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, who were taken into custody by U.S. forces on Saturday morning in Venezuela, flown out of the country, taken to New York, where they will appear before a New York judge here at 10 a.m., we believe, to answer to a four-count indictment issued by the Eastern District of New York, or Southern District of New York, I should say, charging them with numerous crimes involving narco-terrorism, trafficking of drugs, and possession of various firearms. It's been interesting, Holly, just to see the reaction for this from people that were the international community, even the local community.
Yeah, and we actually have the opportunity to speak to somebody with really personal experience, and that's Salt Lake County Councilmember Carlos Moreno, who is from Venezuela originally and is now a naturalized U.S. citizen. Thanks for joining us, Carlos.
No, thank you for the invitation.
I wonder if you can just talk about first of all, your reaction to the news this weekend, and then a little bit about your experience while you were still living in Venezuela.
About the news about Nicolás Maduro was for the entire people in Utah, Venezuelan people, is a miracle. This dictator and this crazy dictator, socialist dictator, was super powerful, and for us, it's incredible that this guy right now is in U.S. soil, and he's gonna be in court today. It's just a miracle because this person create or kill under his government, kill hundreds of thousands of people in Venezuela.
Carlos, can you tell us about his regime, about what the concerns were with the former Venezuelan president, and why it is that you were so concerned and others are concerned about his method of operation, his power there?
This is very, it's a really interesting conversation because Nicolás Maduro was a totalitarian dictator. He has the power of every part of Venezuela. Everybody in Venezuela is under a totalitarian dictatorship. That means that Nicolás Maduro used to have a totalitarian power. That means that he used that power to traffic drugs all over the world. For example, He sent tons of drugs to the United States. Also, he used all that power to send drugs to Europe and another continents. And he used that power to create terrorism all over this hemisphere, in the United States and also in Latin America, with organized crime organizations like El Tren de Aragua and other crazy, terrorists. He had a lot of power in the moment. That's why having him here in America to see the American justice is a miracle for many, many people.
So, Carlos, I mentioned in our last segment that I had an opportunity to go to the country of Colombia and work with some of the Venezuelan refugees who were leaving the country in early 2020. And I wonder, I understood from the caminantes who were coming across the border that under Maduro, the entire economy was basically collapsed for regular Venezuelan. Is that something you saw firsthand?
Of course, because they start confiscating businesses, houses, land of people. You need to make sure we need to make sure to explain the people in Utah and the people in the United States, that we are not facing a regular dictator. We are facing a socialist dictator. This person gonna do anything in his power to make people poor, to see you in extreme poverty, because that's the way that they can control everything. They can become totalitarian. They can dictate your destiny. And this is something very personal for me, because I have in first hand, I am political asylee. I used to be a political asylee. And that's why when being in America, for me, like I said in my campaign, America is not a dream. America is a miracle. This country is a miracle, and we need to fight socialism all over this country.
Carlos, what do you suppose the immediate future is for the Venezuelan government and for the Venezuelan people? I mean, how will they decide, do you believe, who will assume power there, or is there going to be a struggle now?
No, I don't think so. Venezuela, for many years, the people of Venezuela was very friendly with the United States government. I'm going to post in a few minutes a photo of one of the vice presidents in the 60s playing baseball with Venezuelan citizens in Venezuela. We have so many similarities to the United States, but with the socialist regime, everything changed, I think that the transition to democracy will be smooth, will be nice, especially after this United States attack to this drug cartel. That will be smooth and nice. The Venezuelan people is ready for the transition to democracy and opportunities and freedom. And I want to make that clear.
So, Carlos, one of the things that we have learned also is that the Venezuelan community in Utah is, or at least has been in the recent past, one of the fastest growing populations. Are you concerned at all about the U.S. government's revocation of temporary protected status for Venezuelan refugees?
That's a really good question. Of course, what we are living there is a totalitarian regime. We need to see what's going on in the next few days. We are ready for democracy. We are ready for freedom. But also, we need to closely see what happened in Venezuela, especially with the democratic institutions. And of course, right now with this change of regime, or having a change of regime, of course, things have to change here in the United States. And many Venezuelans want to come back to Venezuela to rebuild their life.
Carlos, we've only got about a minute left, but are you optimistic that former president, now acting President Rodriguez, will allow for free and fair democratic elections?
Well, she don't have any other answer. She don't have any other option. I think that she has to do what she has to do, because all that government, they are part of this regime. They have crimes. They have been killing Venezuelans. Now, like Secretary Rubio said, if you don't behave, we're gonna make sure that you're gonna behave. That's why next few days gonna be key. We need to follow this closely. And please, guys, thank you for making this a news in KSL, and thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. That was Salt Lake County Councilman Carlos Moreno, who originally came as a political asylee from Venezuela. So when we come back, we're going to have more local reaction on how Venezuelans now living in Utah are feeling about the capture of President Nicolas Maduro.
Hi, this is Doug Wright. You've heard me talk now for years about the Connecticut soft water system that we have in our home. As we head into the colder weather, if you're dealing with dry and itchy skin, do you notice your skin is cracking, it's uncomfortable, and the lotion doesn't seem to give you the relief you need? Hard water may be a hidden contributor to that pain and discomfort of dry, itchy skin. I've got Monty here from Connecticut Quality Water Systems of Salt Lake, an authorized independent Connecticut dealer and an expert in overcoming challenges with hard water here in Utah.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. When you shower in hard water, the minerals don't rinse away completely, forming a film in your skin, leaving you feeling tight, dry, and constantly itching.
So the hard water minerals are essentially leaving a sticky residue on my body and even in my hair?
Exactly. Connecticut removes the minerals before they touch your skin, leaving you feeling silky, smooth, and comfortable.
Do what I did and stop buying expensive lotions and start treating the source of the problem. Find out how soft your water could be at softwaterutah.com.
Whether you want to travel on-road, off-road, or off the grid, we've got you covered. When you want the best protection from everything Mother Nature can throw at you, we've got that covered too. If you want high-quality truck bed liners and accessories designed to endure the elements and last a lifetime, ask for Line-X spray-on protective coatings and travel on. Don't just protect it, Line-X it. Stop by Line-X today and see what's possible.
Line-X and Jordan Camper have teamed up to offer you the very best in protective coatings and truck accessories. Visit our spacious showroom at 7000 South State in Midvale. We specialize in truck tops and tonneau covers, a wide range of products from floor mats to step bars. Hundreds of variations of commercial shelving for vans and trucks to fit your work needs. Jordan Camper at 7000 South State features multiple installation bays with trained technicians ready to install. Check out our website, jordancamper.com.
My perfect day has sand, salt water, and friends. But my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis can take me out of the moment. Now I'm all in with clearer skin thanks to Skyrizi. Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. With Skyrizi, most people saw 90% clearer skin, and many were even 100% plaque-free at 4 months. Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions, increased infections, or lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor about any flu-like symptoms or vaccines.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis. Visit Skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
For over 22 years, speaking on business on KSL News Radio has been a beloved tradition, celebrating our heroic business leaders and Utah consumers who have helped build one of the strongest state economies in the nation. Now, under the stewardship of the Salt Lake Chamber and hosted by Chamber President and CEO Derek Miller, the program continues to shine a spotlight on those who make Utah's business environment dynamic and thriving. With his expertise and passion, Derek brings the stories of our business community to life. As part of the Salt Lake Chamber, Speaking on Business is proud to continue its legacy of highlighting inspiring stories, trends, and special guests. Support Utah businesses now and be part of Utah's thriving economy. More information can be found at slchamber.com. That's slchamber.com.
Over the years, you've brought them into your home. You were prescribed opioids after the C-section, when Dad injured his back, when your basketball star tore his ACL. Opioids helped with the pain, and you held on to them just in case. But did you know holding on to unused opioids puts your family at risk? Opioids are powerful pain-reducing prescription medicines, but most people who are prescribed opioids don't finish their prescriptions. So millions of unused opioids are sitting in homes across the country. And tragically, more than 100 Americans die every day from overdoses involving opioids. What can you do to protect your family? Remove the risk of unused opioids from your home. Pills, patches, or syrups in drawers, purses, and cabinets, anywhere they might be hiding. To find out how to dispose of them properly, visit www.fda.gov/drug disposal.
And expanded Inside Sources.
It was just over 2 days ago, Saturday morning early, that Nicolas Maduro and his wife Celia Flores were the president and first lady of Venezuela. Today, they are defendants in a New York City courtroom. They were taken into custody and spent last night, maybe the night before even, in a New York jail. Such a huge change in their lives just in the last 48 hours or so. And it's the result, Holly, of a really extensive and interesting military operation that allowed authorities to go in, take that couple into custody on a warrant from the United States, bring them to the United States, and where they'll be facing charges and appearing in front of a federal judge here in about 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah, and we just talked with Carlos Moreno from the Salt Lake County Council, who is from Venezuela, and now we're going to be joined by Mayra Molina, the executive director for the Venezuelan Alliance of Utah. Thanks for joining us today, Mayra.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you could just tell us and our listeners how you are feeling in the Venezuelan community in Utah. How are you feeling about this news about Maduro?
Well, let me tell you, Saturday night when everything started, right, and we had contact with our families from Venezuela, we couldn't believe it. I was in shock and like, I can't believe this is happening. And then we saw the images, and once, the President Trump confirmed, yes, we have Maduro in custody, it was definitely just pure joy and happiness for our country. This is something that we have been waiting for more than 25 years. Justice is all that we want, justice. And we need to make sure that people understand this is not a war against the Venezuela people. This is the process to put a criminal under justice.
Do you suppose, Mayra, that the citizens of Venezuela share that same feeling, that they're supportive of what's going on here?
Yes. I can assure you at least 99% of our population is happy about this. We understand it's going to be a long process. Things are going to be rough, and we need to make sure that the conditions are clear in order to set the democracy back to our country. But we need to make sure, again, that this is just the first step to our freedom and to democracy.
So, Mayra, I'm wondering, you just said that it's probably a long process to really get back to a democracy in Venezuela. What are your thoughts about the Trump administration saying we're going to help run the country, at least the infrastructure and oil production, for the foreseeable future?
Sure. We need to understand that Venezuela is the country with the largest, the biggest reservation of oil. And as history shows, like 50 years ago or more, Venezuela was it is a beautiful country, with democracy and everything was established back in 1950s or so. And that was thanks to the United States of America, because the oil companies that were managed by these companies coming from the United States. And that was the biggest, when Venezuela was the richest country in Latin America. So for us, having President Trump and his administration mentioning this and having his support and the support of people that really love democracy and they're going to be fighting against the communism and socialism, is a great relief and joy that we can work together to make, not just because of Venezuela, but just because of the region. Venezuela has been a beacon for many countries in South America. And we are 100% sure that when Venezuela starts going into that right direction, so many people will go back to Venezuela, and other people would like to come and live as well like before. So we're really, really happy, and we have all the hopes that this is going to happen. soon.
Mayra, can you tell our listeners what the Maduro regime has been like in Venezuela over the last several decades, how that was different than the way Venezuela was prior to the Nicolas Maduro regime?
Oh, yes, for sure. So as before Chavez started his regime, so it was a democracy, you know, like people, they had jobs, they were making good salaries, I mean, decent salaries to make a living. I remember when I came here 25 years ago, my salary was like $1,500, $1,800, you know, and so it was a decent salary to make a living with the family. But then since Chavez came in, and taking control over the oils and other main industries in Venezuela, so the salary, obviously the dollars and the inflation start coming down. So this is something that people need to understand. It was more than 500,000 people dead in this region, and we are trying to have the human rights, torture, assassinations, inflation. It has been a nightmare. People had no idea how bad people in Venezuela have it right now, and we're working to get that back into progress for all.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mentioned earlier that I was in Colombia in early 2020 working with Venezuelan refugees, and one of the things that we heard, of course, was what you were just talking about, is they had gone from having good paying jobs to actually not even being able to be paid enough to buy like a bag of flour at the end of the day. And there was really rampant hyperinflation. Is that something that, what are you anticipating with people who have left the country? Are they going to wait for stabilization? Are they going to stay here in the United States? What is your feeling about that?
Well, talking to other organizations, nation and worldwide, we have discovered we all have the same feelings, right? The same excitement, the same, definitely. We are so hopeful for this to happen as soon as possible, because we understand, we know that people they just want to go back. They just want to go back. But obviously, we understand that right now, it's still the regiment. They have, you know, they're still in power. Let's call it that way. They have the military forces. They have the justice systems. They have all of these other institutions. It's almost impossible for us, and that's why a lot of people are asking, like, why Maria Corina Machado is not going back, and we understand what President Trump said and Marco Rubio said. This is a transition. This is not going to happen overnight, and we need to make sure that every step that we're taking, we're making no mistakes, and the democracy and leadership can go back in a strong and permanent way, not just a temporary way. We need to make sure no mistakes are committed, and that we are going to have that certain that everything is going to be okay.
So is that to say that you believe there should be another set of free and fair elections rather than looking back on Maria Machado's apparent victory and having her take this presidency?
I think everything is going to depend on the actions that President Trump and Delcy, which is the lady who's there as of right now as a president. I think everything is going to depend on actions. No doubt if elections, they're called elections again, no doubt that Maria Corina is going to be the winner of that elections. We won last elections for 80%, 77% against Maduro, but obviously he didn't recognize those results and stay. That's what we call Maduro was not a president. That's what we call him. This is not a kidnapping of a president. This is just United States making justice, and we're happy. So we just wait for those instructions and that process to develop and see what other actions we need to make.
And I think you answered this before, Mayra, but do you believe that as a result of this, some people that have fled Venezuela over the last 10 or 15 years will go back?
Definitely, yes. Yes. Remember, the Venezuelan people who migrate, it was for force, right? It was forced to leave the country. They just want to protect their lives and their families' lives. I do have family there. I do have family that have fled the country because of their dangerous situation. I have mixed emotions there as well. that touched me personally. So, but yes, I'm 100% sure that everything is said and clear and calm and safe. That's what people want to make sure they're safe. They're going to go back to Venezuela.
Thank you. That was Mayra Molina, Executive Director of the Venezuelan Alliance of Utah. And it's, I don't know, refreshing. I don't know how to characterize it. The fact that we've interviewed a couple of local Utahns who are excited about this, who are pleased with it, who are overlooking at least some of the concerns that people have about how this was actually executed. And maybe this was something that needed to happen, and that history will support what the United States did. We'll see. When we come back at the 10 o'clock hour, we're keeping a close eye on Nicolas Maduro's court appearance, which could happen any moment. We're also watching live press coverage of Minnesota Governor and former Vice President candidate Tim Walz, who has an announcement to make as well.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
O'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Andy Farnsworth. KSL's top story this hour. Today's a powder day for many of our local resorts after some significant snow fell overnight into this morning. KSL News Radio's Randall Jepson has more.
We haven't had many big snow days this winter, but the numbers in the mountains are pretty good over the past 24 hours. Snowbird, they reported 14 inches. Powder Mountain got 13 inches. Brighton picked up 11. And there's a list of resorts that say they got at least 9 or 10 inches.
And some more good news for skiers and snowboarders. We have another storm later this week on Wednesday night into Thursday morning. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz says he will not run for re-election.
The two-term Democrat and his party's last vice presidential nominee says he won't run for a third term as Minnesota governor. Tim Walz says he'd have to spend too much time defending his own political interests amid allegations his administration has turned a blind eye to widespread fraud in child care and housing programs. Prior to announcing his decision, Walz reportedly met over the weekend with Minnesota Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar, who's been rumored to be eyeing a run for governor.
ABC News national correspondent Stephen Portnoy reporting.
We are going to break away. Apparently, Minnesota Governor Walz is about to make a press statement about his future as a candidate for governor in that state. We're going to join that live.
Poison our people against each other by attacking our neighbors. And ultimately, they want to take away much of what makes Minnesota the best place in the country to raise a family. They've already begun trying to withhold funds that were meant to help families afford child care. And they have no intention of stopping there. Make no mistake, we should be concerned about fraud in our state government. We cannot effectively deliver programs and services if we can't earn the public's trust. That's why over the past few years, we've made systemic changes in the way we do business. We've gone to the legislature time and time again to get more tools to combat fraud. We've fired people who weren't doing their jobs. We've seen people go to jail for stealing from our state. We've cut off whole streams of funding in partnership with the federal government where we saw widespread criminal activity. We've put new locks on the doors of our remaining programs, and we've hired a new head of program integrity to make sure that those locks can't be broken. All across this state, Minnesotans are hard at work on this problem. Advocates, administrators, investigators are on the front lines defending the integrity of our state's programs, and I want to give a very heartfelt thank you to all of them. There is more to do. A single taxpayer dollar wasted on fraud should be intolerable. And while there's a role to play for everyone, from the legislature to prosecutors to insurance companies to local and county government, the buck does stop with me. My administration has been taking fast, decisive action to solve this crisis. We'll win the fight against the fraudsters. But the political gamesmanship we're seeing from Republicans is only making that fight harder. We've got Republicans here in the state legislature playing hide and seek with potential whistleblowers. We've got conspiracy theorist right-wing YouTubers breaking into our daycares, demanding access to our children. We've got the President of the United States demonizing our Somali neighbors and wrongfully confiscating funds that Minnesotans rely on. It's disgusting and it's dangerous. Republicans are playing politics with the future of this state. It's shameful. And I've said it before, and I will continue to say it. We welcome ideas from anyone, in any party, from any walk of life, who wants to help us continue to stay ahead of these criminals. And we welcome the involvement of the federal government. I am grateful to the career professionals at the U.S. Attorney's Office and the FBI who have been helping us fight this fight for years. But I cannot abide the actions of the political leadership in Washington. These opportunists are willing to hurt our people to score cheap points. They and their allies have no intention of helping us solve this problem, and every intention of trying to profit off of it. Which brings me to this. 2026 is an election year. Election years have a way of ramping up the politics at a time when we simply can't afford more of that in Minnesota. In September, I announced that I would seek a historic third term as Minnesota's governor, and I have every confidence that if I gave it my all, we would win the race. But as I reflect on this moment with my family and my team over the holidays, I came to the conclusion that I can't give a political campaign my all. Every minute that I spend defending my own political interest would be a minute I can't spend defending the people of Minnesota against the criminals who prey on our generosity and the cynics who want to prey on our differences. So I've decided to step out of this race, and I'll let others worry about the election while I focus on the work that's in front of me for the next year. I'm passing on this race with zero sadness and zero regret. I did not run for this job to have the job. I ran for the job to do the job. Minnesota faces enormous challenges this year, and I refuse to spend a single minute doing anything other than rising to meet this moment. Minnesota has always come first and always will. That's what I believe servant leadership demands of me. As an optimist, I'll hold out some hope that my friends on the other side of the aisle will consider what servant leadership demands of them in the moment. We can work together to combat against the criminals. We can work together to rebuild the public's trust and make our state stronger. But make no mistake about it, if Republicans continue down the path of abusing power, smearing entire communities, and running their own fraudulent game at the expense of Minnesotans, I will fight back with everything that I have.
That was Minnesota Governor Tim Walz talking about his reaction to the administration's fraud investigation and his fact that he's not going to run again for Minnesota governor. We're also hearing from ABC that Nicolas Maduro is in court now facing those charges that he and his wife are both undergoing in the Southern District of New York. We're going to join that live.
In 60 days, 3 months, etc. They could try to push forward with a case, but I would expect that this will at least take a number of months, if not much longer.
And if convicted, you mentioned this earlier, what does Maduro face here?
Up to life in prison, and with minimums of 10 and 20 years just on the most serious charges, right? I mean, then you've got additional charges as well. So, if he's convicted here, you're talking about, effectively a life sentence for him, you would think. We'll see. The judge will have enormous discretion when it comes to sentencing. There's always the possibility that he's not convicted of the most serious charges. Again, as we talked about a moment ago, there could be a different case against his wife. And so as a result, his wife might not be convicted of certain charges. They might not be convicted of anything. We shall see. But when it comes to sentencing, the judge has enormous discretion in a case like this.
Dan Abrams, stay with us here for our live coverage. The arraignment of Nicolas Maduro playing out in New York City in federal court. Here in Lower Manhattan, the pictures you see, intense security outside that courtroom. Inside, Aaron Katersky, our chief investigative correspondent, describing a very similar scene. Very heavy security inside that courthouse, a K-9 unit in the hallways. We have just learned that Nicolas Maduro and his wife are both wearing headphones inside that courtroom to listen to the interpreter. These headphones obviously provided by the court. Maduro has taken his seat next to his defense attorney, Barry Polak, and immediately began writing on a notepad. His wife is seated next to her attorney, Mark Donnelly. Apparently she has her hands folded on the table. Judge Alvin Hellerstein introducing himself and saying he would assure a fair processing. That's my job, he said. That is my intent. And when he says a fair proceeding here, he's talking about an arraignment on these charges, a description of these charges. Dan, he will describe what both Maduro and his wife face.
Correct. They will be informed of the charges against them. That's really the point of this proceeding. This is not supposed to be particularly substantive. This is not where he begins to present a defense. This is basically to start the process moving forward. This is you show up in court, you're informed of what you're charged with, and now the process begins.
Dan Abrams, our chief legal correspondent, stay with us here. I want to bring in Martha Raddatz, who's also following these breaking developments here. ABC News live coverage of Nicolas Maduro and his wife now being arraigned on narco-terrorism charges. Dan listing the charges here just moments ago, both inside that courtroom wearing headphones to listen to what it is they face here now in the U.S. Martha, you've had extensive reporting of this U.S. military operation. We heard the president when he came out afterwards and first addressed the nation on this, saying that Nicolas Maduro and his wife were captured as they tried to get to that safe room on their compound. He said it was within moments of closing the door they got him before he could close the door behind him. What an extraordinary shifting of scenes here. Now he's inside this federal courthouse, shackled.
Astonishing, from a presidential compound to a seat in a courtroom in New York. Really an astonishing development. And what is even more astonishing is that military operation, as you know, David, a tactical success. It seemed to be a flawless operation, but there were bloody gun battles. We are learning, the Cubans say 32 Cubans were killed. Now, the Cubans were doing security for Maduro, so it is likely, we know there was gunfire when the U.S. elite Delta Force approached that compound, got near Maduro. There was gunfire that broke out. 32 Cubans apparently killed in that. And Donald Trump has now revealed that the Americans who were wounded were helicopter pilots. We saw those helicopters going over Caracas. They had flown over the waters at about 100 feet, those dark waters arriving, and there was gunfire apparently then. Now, some of those helicopters and some of the other warplanes overhead providing support took out air defenses, but apparently some of those helicopter pilots were hit. They managed to keep flying the helicopters. President Trump said they were bleeding badly, but still kept on. We don't know exactly whether those were gunshot wounds or shrapnel, perhaps, from the helicopter getting hit, but they were able to keep flying those helicopters. When they approached Maduro and his wife, they gave up, according to President Trump, on their way to try to get behind those steel doors. But I can tell you, David, even if they'd gotten behind those steel doors, the Delta Force could have gotten them out of there. They would have blasted their way in through those doors and breached those heavy steel doors, because they had practice on an exact replica of that compound. That compound was within a military installation, but they had been following. A CIA team on the ground knew exactly where they were, where they had gone, and that's why they built a replica, the Delta Force, and were practicing for months in breaching this breaching this compound, David.
Your universal praise for members of the U.S. military in carrying out that very dangerous operation. And of course, the tough questions now come afterward, and not for the U.S. military, but instead for the Trump administration on how we move forward, given the fact that, again, overnight, President Trump has said that the U.S. is in control of Venezuela. We heard Secretary of State Marco Rubio in the last 24 hours, in particular on the Sunday shows here in the U.S., trying to dial back, if you will, some of that rhetoric, saying we'll apply pressure on Venezuela, the embargo on the oil tankers, in addition to other steps taken by the U.S. military and the presence that still very much remains in that region. Secretary Rubio saying that pressure would push Venezuela in a direction that the U.S. would determine whether or not they were listening and following along, and whether or not the U.S. military would have to indeed take any kind of secondary action here. The president clearly said again last night, though, that instead the U.S. is simply in charge now. In this courtroom, you're looking at federal court here in Manhattan, where ousted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, captured by the U.S. military over the weekend, is shackled, sitting in court, wearing a pair of headphones provided by the court. So is his wife, sitting not far from him in that courtroom. We now know that Maduro stood before the judge. Are you Sir Nicolas Maduro Mores? The judge asking.
That was ABC News covering the Nicolas Maduro first appearance in court along with his wife. The judge is reading the indictment, and I've got the indictment here. It's 30 pages, so it could be a little while. There are 4 counts that both Maduro and his wife are facing, including a narco trafficking of drugs, a possession of firearms, and they could each spend the possibility of life in prison for this, Holly, if they're convicted. Right now, they are appearing with their lawyers. They must have had these lined up because they both have very prominent lawyers. Maduro's represented by Barry Pollock, who represents Julian Assange from WikiLeaks, and his wife is represented by Mark Donnelly, also a prominent criminal defense lawyer. The judge is, by the way, 92 years old, was appointed to the bench in 1998. When we come back after the break, we've got more on Inside Sources. Stay with us.
When you need a new water heater, you need it right now.
Yep, can't wait on that.
When you need a new furnace or a new air conditioner come the summertime, you need it right now. So Superior Water and Air has a wonderful program where they can help you with financing. If you need it, get it today and pay it off when you get your tax refund or just over time.
And that's one of the great things is they have multiple financing options. It's not just one, okay, you've got to do it this way. It's, you can wait till just after your tax refund. Well, what if you need no payments until later in the year?
Yeah.
They can work with you like that because, look, they want to help you get you back on your feet with the thing that doesn't work that you got to use.
Yeah.
And they'll just work with your situation. What a great way to do it.
I loved introducing you to my friends at Superior because they're just great people. And when you invite somebody into your home, you want to feel good about them.
Yeah, and they're so customer-centric. That was what really impressed me was they wanted to work with me and my family, whatever needs we might have.
Right. They want your home to be safe and clean. Superior Water and Air. Here's the number, 801-872-8483, or go to superiorwaterandair.com.
Jane Dawson did something smart. She saved hundreds on auto insurance switching to Progressive. With the money she saved, she got herself a pricey bird feeder with an ultra-high-def camera. Should Jane have just bought a regular bird feeder? Yes. Is it hard for her to admire nature when the camera doubles as the bird's potty? Also, yes. But it's Jane's savings, and if she wants to spend her time watching the digestive habits of the white-breasted nuthatch, we say you go, girl. Switch and see if you could save with Progressive and treat yourself. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates.
With the new IHOP value menu, $6 is all it takes to go to your happy place, where stacks of pancakes with bacon and eggs are just $6 every day. French toast, sausage, and eggs are, you guessed it, $6. And fluffy omelets come with a side of pancakes and only cost $6. Go to your happy plates every day at IHOP. $7 in some locations. Available every day for a limited time at participating restaurants in the U.S. Hours may vary. No substitutions. Not valid with other discounts or promotions. Prices may vary.
Hi, this is Derek Overstreet, president of the New Millennium Group and co-host of Stop Working, Start Living with KSL News Radio. Can you imagine what your life would be like if you could retire 3 to 5 years earlier than you thought possible? The things you could do, the loved ones you could spend time with, the memories that you could create. That's what our team at the New Millennium Group does. We'll walk you through the entire process every step of the way. If you'd like to get a copy of the 5-step proprietary plan that will help you retire 3 to 5 years sooner than you thought possible, give us a shout right now. 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370 or utahsfinancialplanner.com. Listen, most of our listeners right now have a tax problem, not a money problem. There's not enough money in Social Security Medicare as it is. Let us show you how you can significantly reduce your taxes. That's 888-999-6370, 888-999-6370, or utahsfinancialplanner.com.
I remember brushing my hair and looking down and thinking, oh my gosh, do I have any hair left?
I used to look at women with thick, beautiful hair and think, why doesn't my hair look like that?
My thinning hair is making me feel so old.
If you want thick, healthy, gorgeous hair, then you need Hair Volume from New Nordic. With clinically proven ingredients like apple extract, biotin, and millet, Hair Volume nourishes your hair follicles to promote thicker, healthier-looking hair. Say goodbye to shedding, thin, and dull hair, and hello to thick, healthy hair with Hair Volume.
Since taking Hair Volume, the shedding has all but stopped.
Now, instead of being jealous of other women's hair, I have friends who are jealous of mine.
My hairdresser couldn't believe the difference in my hair. Now she's using Hair Volume too.
Available as a tablet or delicious gummy, Hair Volume is available online at Amazon and NewNordicUSA.com, or find Hair Volume in the hair care aisle at your local CVS.
Bad driving habits are hard to break, but good driving habits are easy to form, especially when they can lead to a discount on your auto insurance. With Farm Bureau Financial Services, the safer you drive, the more you save. Drivers like you are saving an average of $321 per vehicle. So buckle up, learn more, and find an agent at fbfs.com/save. Individual savings results may vary. Farm Bureau Property and Casualty Insurance Company, Western Agricultural Insurance Company.
Hi, it's Tori DeVito. In every family, small conversations can make a big impact, like when my dad shared his experiences as an alcoholic. Your honesty about that part of your life gave me a sense of integrity that I wanted to uphold in my own life.
I wanted you to know from someone who's been in recovery more than 30 years now that hard work is what creates success, not alcohol or other drugs. I said it a lot, and I'm glad you took it to heart.
Talk, they hear you. For more information, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
An expanded Inside Sources. Inside Sources.
We've had a lot to cover this morning. Such an early Monday, not the least of which
Welcome
was
to 2026.
Seriously, Nicolas Maduro and his wife entering into a New York courtroom this morning. He repeatedly interrupted the judge, saying things like, "I was illegally detained. I am still the president of Venezuela." He indicated that he hadn't fully spoken with his lawyer. Notwithstanding all of that, he and his wife have both entered not guilty pleas, which is exactly what you expect in a federal indictment. I was a little bit, I misstated a little bit who the opposition party leader was, Maria Machado, but you indicated that one of our texters said that she was not actually the elected person.
Yeah, she is the leader of the opposition, but she was not the candidate in the election. That was Edmundo Gonzalez. And, you know, she actually issued a statement 2 days ago where she said, the time for freedom has come, and we need to make sure that Gonzalez is put in as president, as the legitimate president of Venezuela. He must immediately assume his constitutional mandate and be recognized as commander-in-chief of the National Armed Forces by all the officers and soldiers who comprise it. So even though she's considered the leader of the opposition, she wasn't actually the candidate.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem from what we're hearing this morning from some of our guests that her party is going to be immediately reinstated. They may schedule elections where it appears that her party will do very well. It's expected that she would win.
Expected. So, it's interesting. And then that was, he just pleaded not guilty, as you just saw it. But we also were following the news with Tim Walz from Minnesota, who announced that he's not going to run for re-election as the governor for his third term. Amy Klobuchar is a senator. Her name is in the mix right now. I think this was probably just unfolding over the weekend, maybe.
Right.
And
I was
so
surprised
she hasn't announced. Yeah. But I wanted to talk a little bit about Utah elections because on Friday, which was January 2nd, the filing opened for everybody except for the people running for Congress, because that's still up in the air. The filing opened on January 2nd, and it will go until 5 p.m. on Thursday. So we already know some of the people running, but some of the people not running, and those are some of the names that I think were kind of interesting to me.
Yeah, it was just as much a surprise as some of the people that jumped in as some of the people who said, or at least have made it clear that they're not jumping in.
Yeah. So Salt Lake County Councilwoman Amy Winder Newton notified people over the weekend that she was not running again for office. And I think there's another Republican in the county council who was thinking of running and then decided not to. So again, we have a number of people within the Utah system. So it was Sheldon Stewart, another Republican colleague, who is not going to run again.
Amelia Powers Gardner,
Amelia
Utah
Powers
County
Gardner,
Commissioner, has indicated that she's not running again, which was a bit of a surprise. She's been a fairly vocal member, as has Amy Winder Newton.
And you know what's interesting about the one with Amelia is she has already thrown her support behind another familiar name, and that's the former mayor of Provo, Michelle Kaufusi. She just lost her re-election campaign, and then in the fall, like in November, and then has announced on Friday that she filed to run as a candidate for the Utah County Commission. And what was interesting about that is not only does Amelia Powers Gardner endorse her, but there's a number of Utah County mayors who have put their name on the line. Tyler Clancy, representative down in Provo, he's put his name as a supporter of former Mayor Kaufusi. So those are interesting races as well.
Yeah, and she was a very popular mayor, but it seems like a lot of times when you deal with these mayoral races that 2 terms is enough. And she may have been
Todd Weiler
out,
told
right?
us.
Not
that's
necessarily
right.
because she wasn't doing a great job, but just because it was time for someone else to jump in.
Maybe.
So she could be running as a very a popular candidate for that position in Utah County. Some of the other Salt Lake County area representatives who are not jumping in, were you surprised at some of the other names?
I was surprised a little bit to see, and because maybe I don't follow Box Elder County enough, but the deputy injured in the Tremonton officer shooting, he's going to run for Box Elder County Sheriff. And
for the sheriff's office. I saw
that's
that,
Mike
yes.
Allred. Yep, Sheriff's Deputy Mike Allred said he's going to run. So it's interesting also that, not a surprise, but there are a number of races where incumbents are being challenged. So we have Representative Jordan Tusher, and what's interesting about that race especially, so he ran the bill that was just recently repealed, and that's the one about not allowing public unions to engage in collective bargaining. He was behind that bill. Well, he's being challenged by Scott Stevenson, who's the executive director of the Fraternal Order of Police, who's also married to a teacher.
Yeah,
so
he's very involved in that particular issue.
Yeah, well-known names and on opposite sides of that issue for sure. So that'll be an interesting race to follow. Senate President Stuart Adams is running for re-election. He has a handful. I think I've read at least 3 people who are going to challenge him, including the person who used to be the attorney for Weber State University.
Within his own party.
Yeah, within his own party. Republican
Republicans.
challengers.
And
yeah.
you would think that he would not be particularly vulnerable. I would have thought the same thing about Jordan Tusher. I mean, both of them are very seemingly popular, active, not doing anything to shake up the Republican Party at all. But I don't know. There's always time for change.
And there is incumbency advantage, I think, for sure, right? And so people often line up behind the incumbent, but not always. So it's also interesting. We've talked about this really briefly off air, but Representative Doug Fiafia is mounting a challenge against incumbent Senator Dan McKay. And it's interesting because Representative Fiafia is he has lined up supporters that I maybe on the surface would have thought would go with the incumbent, but city council members like Andy Perucci has lined up behind Representative Fiafia. At least that's what it looks like on X, right? He's saying, I'm so excited about this race, et cetera. But again, usually when you look at it, incumbents get reelected at well over 90% of the time, including in Utah, but there's always change. Change does happen.
And Fiafia has been very active, very
He
popular. He works very hard. I don't know, I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but Nate Bluen has indicated that he's going to run for Congress. So his Senate position is open.
That's correct.
And I'm wondering if any Democrats have jumped into that yet. And maybe you don't have that information.
I don't have that information right offhand, but I can certainly look it up. And I know that Representative Carol Spackman Moss has, when she announced that she wasn't going to run again, and she's been there for quite a long time, I've heard through the grapevine, there are at least 3 Democrats who are running for that position. I haven't seen names yet. Sometimes people will jump out the very first day, so people know, right? And they're able to say, hey, look, like I think like Rob Bishop, who announced right before the filing opened, he just kind of want to clear the deck, right? Hey, I'm this person, and I have name recognition, and so I'm going to run. But also, there are people who wait until the very last minute, at like 4:45 p.m., the day that filing closes at 5, and then you get some surprises at the very end as well.
Yeah, and because you can sort of sort out who your opponents are. I mean, when I ran for Attorney General, both times I didn't file on the first day, but I didn't file on the last day either. I kind of like sit back and wait. I also heard, and I don't know that you confirm this or not, that a Democrat has filed to run against Salt Lake County District Attorney Sim Gill. I was told that it was Sean Robinson, who's a member of the Attorney General's office right now. It's not common that it is. I guess the Democrats are like everybody else. There's the internal fighting, but I wouldn't have expected a challenger to Sim Gill within the Democratic Party.
I think that's one of the things that's an interesting discussion, too, when you talk about Utah politics. We have a lot of seats that go unchallenged on both sides, actually. So if you are a Republican incumbent, chances, I think, are semi-decent that you're not going to have a Democratic challenger or from a third party, right? It could happen, and it does happen, but there are also seats that just go completely unchallenged.
It'll be interesting to see, and this is for another date, Holly, who puts their name in the hat for the 1st Congressional District, or the one that's being open right now. We've had I don't know, 3 or 4 Democrats indicating they're going to run, but certainly the Republicans are going to put up a challenger too.
I think they will, and I think there's going to have to be discussion among the current Republican congressional representatives, but because it renumbers the districts, right? And so who might that be? It might be Burgess Owens. It might be that he decides to retire. I don't know yet. But again, one of the things I think that's interesting is people who are collecting signatures to get on the ballot for that congressional one, because the boundaries are uncertain, they can actually collect anywhere in the state of Utah. It doesn't have to be within congressional boundaries.
Which has been a difficult calling. When we come back after the break, we're going to continue our coverage of the Venezuelan president capture and whether or not that could be a warning to other countries. We'll discuss the international concern about that after this.
10:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Andy Farnsworth. KSL's top story this hour. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is pleading not guilty to all 4 charges. He told the judge, quote, "I am innocent. I am not guilty. I am a decent man. I am still president of my country," unquote. Maduro and his wife are also requesting a meeting with the consulate of Venezuela. The flu is just starting to ramp up around the country, and ABC's Jim Ryan has been going through the CDC data. He says Idaho is seeing a huge spike in flu cases, and Utah is seeing a moderate number of cases so far. The numbers are going up.
Some places it's worse than other places. Utah's risk right now, the flu activity is listed as moderate according to the CDC. Jump up north to Idaho, though, and it's considered very high. Within Salt Lake City itself, you folks in the county have lost 7 people, 7 flu-associated deaths so far this season. The 274 people have been sick enough to go to the hospital. So, yeah, it's a problem right now.
Ryan says this year's flu shot is not a great match with the strain of flu that's circulating, but he says the vaccine can still help dampen the impact of the illness. KSL's other top national story this hour from ABC News, Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth says Arizona Democratic Senator Mark Kelly will likely face a demotion in the U.S. Navy for taking part in taking part in a video that urged troops to ignore illegal orders.
It's an administrative action that's short of a court-martial. It will likely see Mark Kelly losing his rank as a retired Navy captain and would result in a reduction in his military pension. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says the senator will have 30 days to submit a response and that, quote, further violations could result in further action. Kelly was among Democratic members of Congress, veterans of the armed forces and intelligence community, who urged troops to ignore illegal orders in what Hegseth calls a reckless and seditious video.
ABC's Stephen Portnoy reporting. Your money at this moment, the Dow's up 730 points. That's a 1.5% increase to 49,113. Coming up, this morning's storm moves out, but there's another one not far behind. KSL weather's next. KSL News Time, 10:32.
The sources where we get our news matters.
When you listen to Utah's Morning News, we want you to feel the stories are important to you and trustworthy. This is Amanda Dixon.
And I'm Andy Farnsworth. Join us weekday mornings on KSL News Radio.
I'm back to doing what I love and more, thanks to the Good Feet store.
Do you spend half your day walking or standing while working? If you have foot, knee, or back problems, the Good Feet store wants to help you like we helped Tony.
Pain that I experience the most is foot pain from being on my feet all day. You're having to kind of talk to yourself through the whole shift, like, I got this, I can do this. Before, I felt defeated, and now it's like, all right, let's go. I'm ready. A whole new life, like sunshine coming on.
And how about working more comfortably, like Dennis?
Working at an amusement park, it's always on your feet. I just couldn't take it, but I didn't have a choice. I just couldn't believe that putting these arch supports in made that much of a difference that quickly. I could do my job and I could take care of my family. I know what my tomorrow's gonna be. It's gonna be positive.
You deserve a better life too. Stop in the Good Feet store today. We have locations in Farmington, Riverton, and Sandy.
Thanks to the Good Feet store.
For over 22 years, speaking on business on KSL News Radio has been a beloved tradition, celebrating our heroic business leaders and Utah consumers who have helped build one of the strongest state economies in the nation. Now, under the stewardship of the Salt Lake Chamber and hosted by Chamber President and CEO Derek Miller, the program continues to shine a spotlight on those who make Utah's business environment dynamic and thriving. With his expertise and passion, Derek brings the stories of our business community to life. As part of the Salt Lake Chamber, Speaking on Business is proud to continue its legacy of highlighting inspiring stories, trends, and special guests. Support Utah businesses now and be part of Utah's thriving economy. More information can be found at slchamber.com. That's slchamber.com.
Time for a check of traffic and weather together on KSL News Radio. Let's get another look at the roads with Aubrey Withridge.
Have a really wet drive out there right now. If you're traveling on I-15, it's going to be wet and rainy if you're in Utah County heading from Santaquin over to the point of the mountain. It is moving at good speeds, but just remember it is wet. And then from the point of the mountain into downtown, that's looking good as well. And if you're coming from Weber or Davis County heading into downtown Salt Lake City, just moving at good speeds, but still looking wet and slick out there. So just be careful. If you're coming out of the Parley's Canyon, it's still looking pretty slow, especially the closer you get into the Park City area. Highway 40, it's going to be slow through that area. Highway 40 itself, as you make your way around Jornell Reservoir, that's going to be slow and snowy. And I do see another crash. This is up in Sardine Canyon in the Logan area, just after you come down the hill from Manaway and heading over into Wellsville. You'll see a crash there. It looks like someone slid off of the road there, so it is slick and snowy through that canyon as well. And we have a city street crash out in Tooele at 600 North on SR 36, causing a little bit of northbound slowing there as well. Step aboard history, walk through recreations, see real artifacts, and feel the legacy of Titanic the Exhibition. Open now at the shops at Southtown and Sandy. Tickets at thetitanicexhibition.com. I'm Aubrey Withridge in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, the valley rain and mountain snow will be clearing out this afternoon. Actually, even seeing some sun now in Parley's Canyon, which we weren't earlier. Today, the high looking to be around 48 degrees. The next storm looks like it's coming in Wednesday evening into Thursday morning. Could put some snow on the valley floor. Right now, it's 41 degrees in Salt Lake City. I'm Andy Farnsworth from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
The all-new Inside Sources. Your inside access to the people and policies shaping Utah's future. Here are Greg Skordas and Holly Richardson on KSL News Radio.
Well, Holly, President Trump has reaffirmed that the United States is now in control of Venezuela after the raid that led to the capture of dictator Nicolas Maduro. We followed his court hearing this morning. It's now over. He's entered not guilty pleas to all of the charges. He is not seeking bail. Of course, he probably wasn't going to get it anyway. And the judge has scheduled his next hearing for March 17th. That's a bit down the road. ABC's Lionel Moisey had more to say about what the president is now saying about other countries that might want to be on guard.
Trump last night issuing stark warnings to other countries.
Colombia is very sick, too, run by a sick man who likes making cocaine and selling it to the United States. And he's not going to be doing it very long, let me tell you.
And Mexico.
Mexico has to get their act together.
The president was also asked about Cuba, where the economy has been supported by Venezuela for decades.
Cuba looks like it's ready to fall.
Many there now fear the U.S. could take military action in Cuba as well.
So it also is interesting that he said during that same discussion on Air Force One that we need to, quote, we need Greenland wanting to annex Danish territory, which caused an uproar in both Denmark and in Greenland. And to weigh in on some of these stories is Jay Evenson, opinion editor of the Deseret News. Thanks for joining us, Jay.
Hey, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So is this a warning to other countries? I mean, it sounds like it's a clear warning. What should other countries be worried about?
Well, I think if there was any message sent over the weekend, it is that if President Trump says he's going to do something, he probably is going to do it. But I don't know. There are limits to U.S. military capability. The military wants to always be able to fight wars on two fronts at the same time. But when you're talking about, Colombia, Mexico, and Greenland, first of all, I don't see how Greenland fits in with those other two at all. But there's more to this, and we talked about this in the break. There's more to this than just taking over a country and grabbing a leader. You have to figure what's going to happen next. And just I kind of liken this to my own personal experience. I was in Bangladesh about a year ago, and they're trying to they deposed the prime minister, and they're trying to clean up that country. And the interim leader told me he was just astounded at how deep the corruption went in every facet of government there. And from the reports that I'm seeing, it's similar in Venezuela. And so it's going to take a long time to turn that around. The people of Venezuela ought to be as wealthy as the people of Norway because of their rich oil reserves, but they're not. And corruption is deep-seated. I want to know what's going to happen next. And if you're going to do that in Venezuela, and you're going to do it in Colombia, and you're going to do it in Mexico, I think Greenland would be pretty easy if they wanted to take that. But this is something, this was the president who campaigned against forever wars and nation building. You're talking about nation building on a grand scale that we've never contemplated before.
And Jay, speaking of Venezuela, I mean, we're talking about whether or not the acts of the United States was legal under American law, whether it's legal under international law, whether there's questions about that. But the overriding opinion that we're getting from the Venezuelans in the United States and in Venezuela is that maybe this wasn't such a bad idea. I mean, this Maduro seemed like he was such a corrupt and a leader and had such a bad government that maybe there was one of those kind of a means to an end that we're willing to overlook what the United States did. That is maybe good for Venezuela, but maybe frightening for some of these other countries that we're talking about.
Yeah, there seems to be no shortage of really bad leaders out there. And that's the concern in Venezuela, right? I mean, I think nobody could defend Maduro and what he did and how he treated his own people. But who's waiting in the wings? This vice president who's now being a little bit more friendly to the United States and saying, okay, I'll take over the country. Is she the type of person we want leading Venezuela? And what about the entrenched bureaucracy of corruption in that country? How do we get at that? How do we change that? We don't want to replace Maduro with somebody just as bad and to leave the Venezuelan people as poorly off as they have been. And I think as a nation, right now there's a lot of grudging respect for what the U.S. did over the weekend. And I've read reports saying that Putin wishes this is how things had gone in Ukraine. They had just done a quick strike and grabbed Zelensky and taken him out and then controlled the country. But as impressive as that is, I think the U.S. will be judged in the long term by how it handles the next step. What next for Venezuela? How do we transition it into a peaceful democracy?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's interesting. And I'm looking at a CBS News article, but it's all over other news sources as well, that President Trump says that the U.S. is actually going to run Venezuela and will, quote, run it properly until there's a safe, proper, and judicious transition in power in Venezuela. But there's very few details, right? So as you mentioned, they've sworn in now the vice president, but she went on state state television and said Maduro is the only president of Venezuela and demanded his release. And as you pointed out, Greg, she's kind of softened her stance a little bit and said she's open to working with the U.S. But to your point, also, if the corruption runs deep, she's a big Maduro supporter. So if we're looking at regime change and trying to get to a democracy, I wonder if she's the person who should be in power.
Colin Powell famously said concerning Iraq, if you break it, you own it. And we've broken it now, and we own it. And if we are in control of Venezuela, that means soldiers on the ground, that means people, that means we are the law. And I don't know how, it's a large country.
Yeah,
and
28 million people.
Yeah. Are we prepared to send in the kind of troop presence that we need to do a full-scale occupation and try to maybe get rid of some of the bad people and put some good people in power? That's a huge undertaking, and it's very vague right now what we're planning to do next. But if we let it just go back to what it was before, I think we've caused more harm than good.
I wonder if you could speak really briefly to maybe Europe's response.
Europe has been very muted in its response. Of course, the United States is the main partner in NATO, and it's understandable why they would be muted. But there's been a lot of criticism of Europe saying, look, you condemned the attacks on Ukraine, but you're not condemning this. I don't think there is a real corollary between the two. Ukraine was not Venezuela. Zelensky was not Maduro. And it's the attack on Russia by Russia on Ukraine is a threat to all of Europe and all of NATO. The attacks on Venezuela does not have the same meaning for the rest of South America.
Yeah, thanks so much. That was Jay Evenson, opinion editor for the Deseret News. When we come back after this break, we're going to speak with an immigration attorney who's from Venezuela originally, and I want to ask him about what Venezuelans need to know about temporary protected status in the United States. Stay with us.
Most diets will help you lose a few pounds, but Soda weight loss will help you lose years. I lost 37 pounds on the Soda weight loss program 3 years ago, and I feel younger than I've felt in decades. And it's not because of how I look, it's because of how I feel.
But you do look younger,
Thank
too.
you.
I let go of 70 pounds in 5 months, and then I looked at the before and after pictures of myself and was like, wow.
It's something when you don't have to carry all of that excess weight around. And I was at a stage in my life where I didn't want to add drugs to my regimen. I wanted to reduce the number of medications I had to take. So the nutritionist at Soda Weight Loss taught me how to have a healthy relationship with food.
And it was so helpful that I could text my nutritionist anytime I wanted to for advice, which helped me learn what I needed to know so that I could keep it off. And right now, this is the perfect time to join, because if you join now, your partner joins for free. It's the perfect gift for both of you.
It's at Soda Weight Loss.
SOTAweightloss.com, because soda is, say it with me, Amanda, state of the art.
You gave years, maybe decades to your job. You showed up, worked hard, and planned for retirement. But now the company's changed, or maybe you've taken a buyout or been forced into early retirement. So what happens next? I'm Jeff Jr., founder of Trajan Wealth. And if you've built up a 401k or thrift savings plan, now is the time to ask, is that money really working for you? Many workplace retirement plans offer limited options and even less guidance. At Trajan Wealth, we help people just like you roll over their accounts into IRAs with more flexibility and personalized investment strategies built around your goals. For households with $500,000 or more, let us build you a personalized plan. We operate on veteran values, service, trust, and doing what's right. Your next chapter starts now. Call Trajan today. 801-207-9900. That's 801-207-9900.
Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. See website for details.
You trust us for news and information in your car. Now trust us at home. KSL News Radio has you covered, keeping you informed on the latest breaking news, weather, traffic, sports, and more. Listen on your Amazon Echo or Google Home device. Just say, Alexa, open KSL News Radio. Or listen on the KSL News Radio Listen app. Text the word app to 57500. KSL News Radio. We have you covered.
Most of us like to be out in the sun. That's why sunscreen and other safety measures are key to protecting your skin from aging and cancer. The FDA recommends using a sunscreen with a sun protection factor, or SPF, of 15 or higher. Also, look for broad spectrum on the label. That means both harmful ultraviolet A and B rays are blocked. UVA rays age the skin, UVB rays burn, and both cause cancer. But the perfect sunscreen doesn't count if you use it wrong. Don't need sunscreen on a cloudy day? Wrong. 80% of UV rays still get through the haze. Only use sunscreen at the beach? Nope. Anytime you're outside, UV rays attack the skin, so you need protection. And you have to reapply sunscreen every 2 hours. Remember, SPF plus broad spectrum equal healthy fun in the sun. Visit www.fda.gov/sunscreen for more information. A message from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm. I'm Chuck McDowell, founder of Wesley Financial Group. Did you buy a timeshare because they told you it was a great investment? That's a lie. Most timeshares can be bought online for $1. To find out what your timeshare is worth and to cancel it, call us today and we'll send you our timeshare exit kit free with all your options for cancellation.
Call Wesley for your free exit info guide. 800-771-1300. That's 800-771-1300.
I'm Ed Evans, CEO of Consumer Cellular. No, we're not one of the big guys. Truth is, we don't want to be. If you're over 50, Big Wireless probably has you paying for more data than you might need. You could be throwing away thousands over a lifetime.
Our entry-level data plans start at just $20 a month. And for a limited time, switch and get your second month free. Call 1-888-FREEDOM, visit consumercellular.com or a store near you and get your second month free today. Plans include $5 credit for auto-pay and e-billing. See site for additional details.
Come on, the meeting's already started.
Sometimes it's important.
Last call, boarding gate number 9.
Sometimes it's urgent.
Trip for Aurora.
Sometimes it's vital. Hospital treatment within 1 hour of a stroke can prevent lifelong disability. If you notice someone experiencing sudden weakness on one side or having a problem speaking, walking, or seeing, call 911 fast. Stroke. Know the signs. Act in time. A message from the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke.
Inside Sources.
The court hearing for deposed leader Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela and his wife Celia Flores has ended. He's pled not guilty. He's not seeking bail, not going to get it anyway. The next hearing is not for a couple of months, March 17th. The charges, Holly, are serious. And by all accounts, this was a very bad man with a bad leadership who had done so much to ruin that country. I mean, everyone we've talked to is talking about this is a great thing. I guess just the lawyer in me is like, well, it is a great thing, and it was good that it happened, but the method is always a problem when you talk about just going into a country and taking somebody by force, even though he probably deserved it.
You know, there's a statement, nature abhors a vacuum, so does power. And so that's one of the questions, right, is who takes over. And we just talked with Jay Evenson, and President Trump has indicated the U.S. will take over, but we do have Maduro's vice president has now been sworn in as the president of the country. And so we'll see. But one of the things that's interesting to me is Venezuela has some 8 million refugees who've left the country. And for a variety of reasons, right, but a lot of them economic and because of or political threats, even to their own lives, right, for speaking up. But we have with us today, he's an attorney, a Utah immigration attorney, Carlos Trujillo, who is originally from Venezuela. And first of all, thanks for joining us today, Carlos.
Always a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we wanted to ask you, first of all, what was your response to the news over the weekend that President Maduro had been removed?
So that is a compounded question, but I will say this. It started with a lot of excitement. It started with a lot of happiness, okay, because this is a person that represents a regime that has taken over my country for the last 26 years, and they have committed crimes against humanity, and they have done despicable things. However, that feeling kind of went downhill from the moment that it got announced to the moment that we started seeing the plans of the administration of using the current VP and the current regime to effectuate the change in the country, because that makes no sense whatsoever.
So you believe, Carlos, that the current vice president, actually she's now president, doesn't necessarily show a change that would be consistent with what U.S. policy was in removing Maduro in the first place?
So it makes no sense from different reasons. And the first thing that I want to call people's attention to, if we're thinking about a person that is supposed to be bringing democracy back and doing things the right way, why does that person have to be acting under the threats of you either do what we ask you to do or we take you out as well? That just right there tells you that this is not a person that it is actually in their heart to even do that kind of stuff. But number two, and the most important thing that people are not seeing, because you might not be too well related with what's happening down there, under the VP, you still have two of the most dangerous persons in Venezuelan politics. Padrino, who is the general in charge of the military, and you have Diosdado Cabello, who is the person that actually directs the colectivos, the people that actually commit crimes against the population for raising their voice against the government. So those two people are still to the right and to the left of the VP that supposedly is going to bring about the change that they're trying to force upon Venezuela.
That is really good information. Then you're right. I did not know that, at least. So thank you for that information. I have a question about Venezuelan refugees in the United States. So I know that there's a variety of statuses for those refugees, but one of the things that is interesting and concerning to me is temporary protected status, and the United States government revoked that in earlier this year, I think, or last year, sorry, since we're in a new year, last year. And I'm wondering if you could speak as an attorney to that temporary protected status and what that means now.
So the very important thing to understand this part of the law with TPS and everything is the nonsensical explanations that we have gotten from the administration. And right now, I think that we can do the comparison that we've been trying to do, but it's finally in the light of the American public. The first thing that they said when Secretary Noem announced this is that Venezuela is not a problem. That Venezuela, there shouldn't be a problem for people to go back to Venezuela. You know, the circumstances of the country conditions didn't really allowed or really permit for the TPS to even exist. That was her announcement when she tried to explain why she was doing this. But wait a second. What have we heard for the last 48 hours? We have heard about the despicable things that President Maduro and this regime has done to the people, and now they're saying how good it is that we have taken one of the most evil person in the Western Hemisphere. Wait a second, but then why did you take TPS away? Then we started to see that it's really kind of getting some cracks in that logic, and it got to the point that crack actually in an interview yesterday, they say, well, they didn't really need TPS because they can apply for refuge status, which is incorrect under the law. They need to apply this for asylum. But wait a second, but that still doesn't explain. If you're giving people asylum, it's because they are in danger in their home countries. That's what temporary protected status is for. So it makes no sense that they took it away. It makes no sense that they're not putting it back, because right now there's going to be a vacuum of power that so far the people that are in charge are the people pointed in the UN reports of committing the crimes against humanity, like Padrino Lopez or Diosdado Cabello and the colectivos that they use to go against the population. So it's something that is necessary, something that they should revisit, but even yesterday on many interviews, they're not going to, because their goal is to try to cut not only on illegal immigration, but they're really trying to cut down on legal migration as well.
Carlos, from your experience and representing individuals from Venezuela, is there a thought that if, in fact, there are free and fair elections and maybe the Maria Machado opposition party prevails and they get their candidate back in, that there will be a large group of Venezuelans, people who are here in the United States, that will go back to that country?
Yes. So the one thing that we need to understand is that the Venezuelan community is a bit different than other migrating communities that we have seen not only in this country or in the world. There is really a very deep-rooted patriotic feeling towards Venezuela, and a lot of people are waiting to go back to their country. So that we will see some of it. Now, the other factor is that this regime really separated many families. There are many families here in Utah, in the United States, and in other countries of the world that left Venezuela, but they couldn't live with their parents. They couldn't live with other family members. So there is a big group of the community that are longing to reunite with their family members. So that's also going to drive large people to go back. Now, even though that's going to be the case, though, we do have to keep in mind that there's a lot of people that do not have that they actually have set roots here in the United States, here in the state of Utah. And if all of that happens that you mentioned, then they will no longer have an asylum to fall on. And these are people that have been waiting for an interview for 12 years, 10 years. And now they're going to be asked to, well, I'm sorry, your asylum really is no longer viable. You need to pack up and go and start from zero again.
Wow. Carlos, we only have about a minute left. I'm wondering if you could just tell our listeners about how large is the Venezuelan community in Utah?
It's 13 to 15,000. Sometimes I have heard in the upper end 17 to 20,000. But the biggest thing that I do call attention to, even on that number doesn't seem as big, a lot of these people have started businesses. They are key employees in many businesses. They have bought property. So it's going to be interesting to see if that migration back to Venezuela, how is it going to affect the economy and our society here in the state.
Thank you, Carlos. That was Carlos Trujillo, Utah immigration attorney. And I hadn't realized, Holly, the large number of Venezuelans who are living in Utah. That's a significant number that I didn't expect.
One of the fastest growing groups.
Yeah. When we come back after the break at the 11 o'clock hour, we're going to go more in depth on the relationship between the U.S. and Venezuela, and we'll have somebody from the inside talk to us about that. Stay with us.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
11 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Claire Scott, KSL's top story this hour. And it is developing news. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro pleading not guilty to narco-terrorism charges in court today. The arraignment took just over half an hour this morning. Maduro presented himself to the judge as the president of Venezuela and said he had been kidnapped. His wife sat beside him, also pleading not guilty to the charges. Maduro's lawyer said he is not currently seeking any release on bail, but he could request it later. Meanwhile, the UN Security Council held an emergency session to debate Maduro's arrest. ABC News national correspondent Stephen Portnoy has more.
As Maduro appeared in court in Lower Manhattan, uptown, Venezuela's UN ambassador urged the Security Council to condemn what he called the kidnapping of his country's leader.
The events of January 3rd constitute a flagrant violation of the UN Charter.
America's UN ambassador, Mike Waltz, fiercely rejected the charge.
This was a law enforcement operation.
Waltz added the Trump administration won't allow the Western Hemisphere to be used as a base of operation for America's adversaries. Stephen Portnoy, ABC News, Washington.
Your money at this moment, the Dow is up 764 points, the S&P is up 53 points. And coming up, skies clear this afternoon. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time 11:01.
Mornings are for recharging.
And they're for starting your day right.
We volunteer to join you in the car. Get news and weather at 102.7 FM during the most important part of your day.
Andy and Amanda, each morning between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
It's game day. Are your moderate to severe Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis symptoms keeping you from the action? Skyrizi, risankizumab Riza, could help you get back to the game. Skyrizi is proven to help people feel significant symptom relief, achieve remission, and visibly improve damage of the intestinal lining. Skyrizi is a prescription injection medicine for adults. Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions, increased infections, or lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor about any flu-like symptoms or vaccines. Liver problems leading to hospitalization may occur when treated for Crohn's or ulcerative colitis.
Control is everything to me.
Ask your doctor about Skyrizi, the #1 prescribed biologic in Crohn's and ulcerative colitis combined. Learn more at skyrizi.com or 1-866-SKYRIZI.
At Uline, they know going the extra mile takes hard work. For companies pushing to go further, Uline will go the distance with you. 24/7, they answer the phone to get you the shipping and industrial supplies you need. Business can move fast. Unexpected large orders, adverse weather, new safety guidelines, and changing economic trends. Uline works hard keeping 41,000 items ready to ship, minimizing detours on your way to the extra mile. Visit uline.com.
Is your financial advisor offering you up to a 30% upfront bonus? Or are they promising you up to 10% growth per year, all for your retirement income? If not, then you need to come to Trajan Wealth. I'm Jeff Jr., founder of Trajan Wealth. If you have a plan to retire within the next 10 years, don't wait only to find out it's too late. I've seen hardworking folks like you retire only to be required to go back to work, all because their advisor told them guarantees like these were too good to be true. They're not. That's up to $30,000 upfront or up to $10,000 per year on $100,000, all guaranteed for retirement income. Don't keep working when you're supposed to be retired, and don't let any financial advisor tell you it's too good to be true. Call Trajan today, 801-207-9900. That's 801-207-9900.
Annuities, non-advisory products. DBA Trajan Wealth Insurance Solutions. Additional disclosures at trajanwealth.com.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by My Style Checking from Mountain America Credit Union. Here's Aubrey.
Roads out there, if you're out and about on I-15, all the way from Ogden into downtown, is moving at good speeds, but again, still a little bit wet out there. And if you're coming from Utah County, from Spanish Fork over into downtown Salt Lake City, that's moving at good speeds as well. Seeing it looking pretty good if you're coming out of Tooele County right now on the 201 freeway. Just a little bit of bunching in Magna around the stoplights, but I-80 is moving good over into downtown Salt Lake City. If you are coming out of Eagle Mountain and Saratoga Springs on Pioneer Crossing and 2100 North, that's moving at good speeds as well. Still seeing it pretty slow if you're up in the mountains right now near in Park City near Kimball Junction area on Highway 40. That's looking a little bit slow, but Parley's Canyon is looking a lot better than it was even just a few minutes ago. While you're planning your day, plan for comfort too with the Good Feet store. Find the location nearest you at goodfeet.com. I'm Aubrey Withrich in the KSL Traffic Center.
The rain showers will continue to clear as we head into this afternoon. Tomorrow, mostly clear skies and a high of 50. Storms are expected to return on Wednesday. Right now, it is 43 and rainy. I'm Claire Scott from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
The all-new Inside Sources. Your inside access to the people and policies shaping Utah's future. Here are Greg Skordas and Holly Richardson on KSL News Radio.
We've heard a lot of mixed reactions this morning about the detention and now charging of Nicolas Maduro from Venezuela. Of course, he ran a completely corrupt government by all accounts, but he's now in custody. He's in a New York prison. Venezuela is a country that has had a very positive experience in the past, although his administration certainly set that back. And KSL has a podcast called Hope in Darkness. It's a story about American Josh Holt, who was trapped inside a Venezuelan prison for crimes he did not commit. And in one of the episodes, producer and KSL News Radio's director Becky Bruce walked us through what Venezuela used to be like. Let's listen.
A narrow strip of verdant mountains separates the city of Caracas from the Caribbean Sea. Tourism videos in the 50s and 60s enticed visitors with tales of vibrant city life and epic scenery, a paradise just a flight away. Tropical resort islands like the one Josh and Tammy visited on their honeymoon dot the coast. The country had a lot going for it.
Venezuela is a beautiful country. Caracas is a beautiful city.
That's Laura Gamboa, an assistant professor of political science at Utah State University, an expert on Latin American politics, and a native of neighboring Colombia.
Venezuela was the most long-standing democracy in Latin America, right? I keep telling this to my students. When I grew up in Colombia, people fled to Venezuela. It was never the other way around, right? They were seeking peace and security and prosperity.
So we just heard from a little bit from the KSL podcast Hope in Darkness that Venezuela used to be, it was one of the breadbaskets of South America, right? It was rich and lush. So we have with us Becky Bruce, who was the producer and host of that show, Hope in Darkness, the Josh Holt story. And, you know, I just have to say for our listeners, we just talked with Carlos Trujillo, who was one of Josh Holt's attorneys working to get him out of that Venezuelan prison. So we are lucky today. Becky, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So tell us a little bit about Josh's story, the Josh Holt story, especially if our listeners don't remember it.
Yeah, consider this the Reader's Digest condensed version. It took me 2 years to untangle this stuff, so I'm probably not going to do it justice in a minute. But the long story short is he met a girl. Classic story, right? He meets this woman on Facebook after he served his mission in Seattle, Washington, where he was speaking Spanish. She was looking for English speakers who also spoke Spanish online to improve her English. His Spanish was terrible after his mission. He really didn't speak very well at all. And long story short, they fall in love. He decides to go to Venezuela and marry the girl. Her name's Tammy. And everything is fine until about a week or two after he arrives and they're married. There's a raid on their apartment complex. Government troops, police armed with AK-47s, come all through the complex, banging on doors, demanding men come outside. And Josh gets rounded up as part of that. And the whole time, he keeps hearing people say, "Who's that?" "That's the gringo." "Ah, okay." So something's up. He doesn't really know exactly what. Long story short, the Venezuelan government has decided to accuse him of being a spy, which I spent a lot of time with Josh, but within the first 5 minutes, I got to tell you, there's no way this guy's a spy. And that sets the stage for him to be imprisoned for 2 years almost, 1 month shy of that, alongside his wife, Tammy, who at any point in time could have gotten free if she had just been willing to turn on Josh and say, yeah, this guy's a spy. They would have let her go, but she refused.
Becky, how were you and how was KSL News Radio introduced to this case? It sounds like a fascinating story. And how did you come to actually meet up with Josh Holt?
Yeah, that's a pretty cool story, actually. So Josh came to my boss, Cheryl Worsley, who was in charge of our podcast division and still is, and said, "Hey, I've got this story and I'd love to tell it and I don't really know where to start. Can you help?" And Cheryl said, "Well, let me pair you up with Becky and we'll see what happens." I set out to tell a story about this one guy and his wife. And in essence, the podcast is about Josh and Tammy Holt. But I didn't expect that we would be uncovering this massive refugee crisis that, back in 2020 was already larger than the Syrian refugee crisis. And it was something that nobody at the time was talking about. It's become more and more present in media coverage in the 6 years since then, but it's still massive and completely underreported. And I think what people don't really understand is the stage was set for this economic collapse in Venezuela and a country in crisis decades ago. This is not brand new information. This is not sudden. Back in the 1980s, you may remember that most of the top end of South America and the bottom end of Central America was in a huge recession. It was really hard hitting across the board in multiple countries, but that allowed Hugo Chavez to rise to power. And Nicolas Maduro is Chavez's handpicked successor. So when Chavez died in the early 2010s, Maduro stepped right into the role and arguably went farther even than Chavez did.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Becky, I was able to share with listeners earlier that in 2020, early 2020, I was in Colombia working with refugees that were coming across the border from Venezuela. In fact, I was there in Colombia as we got word that all international boundaries were shutting down. And my daughter and I were on like the last plane out to get to Florida. Yeah, it was interesting because we were already starting to make plans. What if I have to stay here for 6 months, right? And I don't speak Spanish. But it was one of the things where you're right. Not a lot of people were paying attention because there was so much other news happening also. I wonder if you could also maybe talk about the resolution of Josh Holt's story.
Yeah, and again, that was complicated to untangle too. There's not really any one particular thing that concretely earned him his freedom. It was a fight that they fought on multiple fronts. His mother, Lori Holt, was instrumental in just banging the drum and getting people to pay attention to her and keep Josh's story in front of news coverage. So she had the ear of Representative Mia Love, who worked tirelessly on the case. She had the ear of Senator Orrin Hatch. Every single time Senator Hatch was with President Trump, he pestered him about Josh Holt. He had a sticky note in his pocket that he would pull out and say, what are we going to do about Josh Holt and getting Josh Holt home? The real kind of turning point came because there was a guy who was a staffer for the Senate Foreign Relations Committee under Senator Bob Corker, who was the chair at the time back in 2018. His name's Caleb McCary, and he ultimately lost his job over what I'm about to tell you. Back around 2002, Caleb McCary is part of this leadership retreat group that meets in Boston. It's called the Boston Group, and Nicolas Maduro and his wife are there. And they shared some Sam Adams. I mean, the idea that, in the modern day, we can just say, yeah, so this guy had a beer with the future authoritarian leader of Venezuela. Sounds crazy, but that happened. And that opened the door for him in 2018 to go visit Venezuela with his boss, to great consternation from other members of Congress, like Senator Marco Rubio, who were dead set against it, and negotiate Josh's freedom. And ultimately, Caleb is convinced to this day that without Josh's mother fighting as hard as she did, and without his personal relationship with Nicolas Maduro, Josh would still probably be in prison now.
Okay, one quick final question. Do you know how Josh and Tammy Holt are feeling about the Maduro capture?
I haven't talked to Josh directly yet. His job keeps him pretty busy these days, but I did reach out to Tammy over the weekend, and she was gracious enough to share a little bit with me. She still has friends and family in South America. Most of them fled Venezuela to go to Ecuador, but there are still some in Venezuela. And she's got some very mixed feelings. She's certainly no Maduro fan, and would have been one of the first people to tell you that he needed to go. And she's really worried about what happens next. A lot of Maduro's followers are still in the country, ostensibly in positions of power. It's kind of hard to see exactly how that's shaking out. And she's really nervous about that power vacuum and how that gets filled next. And there's also an element of the U.S. doesn't have a great reputation in South America, because we've interfered in the past in multiple other countries with regime change. So there's a little bit of resentment directed in our direction in general. Not everybody shares that viewpoint, but then you have government leaders like Maduro exploiting that and blaming the U.S. for everything that's wrong. So she's also worried that on the ground, not everybody is going to be in favor of Maduro losing power. He still had his supporters.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. That was KSL News Radio's news director, Becky Bruce, and she also produced Hope in Darkness, the Josh Holt story. When we come back, we're going to speak with a BYU professor, an expert in Latin American politics, to help us unpack some of the shockwaves that we're still feeling from this dramatic capture of Nicolas Maduro. Stay with us.
My doctor told me my cholesterol is borderline, so I took control with Garlic Healthy Cholesterol Formula. Garlic helps maintain healthy cholesterol safely and naturally. It's odor and taste-free, and Garlic is a world leader in garlic potency. I'm taking charge of my cholesterol with Garlic Healthy Cholesterol Formula, cholesterol's natural enemy.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. The term natural references only the garlic in the product. Use as directed.
You still thinking job change in the new year?
Yeah, I need something that's in high demand and more stable in this economy.
IT?
Yeah, cybersecurity, maybe even AI.
That's what I did.
Really? How?
Went to My Computer Career. You don't need any prior experience, and you could start your new career in a matter of months. A lot of IT pros go to school there, too, to level up.
Sweet. Are classes online or on campus?
Both.
Wow, I'll check it out. Thanks.
Make this your year. Take
Take the free career evaluation now at mycomputercareer.edu, an elite CompTIA certification partner. Financial aid is available to those who qualify, including VA benefits.
Happy New Year, Susan. I really appreciate you picking up the bill for lunch.
I'm happy to. One of my New Year's resolutions is being better with money. So I've started using Upside, the free app that pays you cash back for buying gas.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you actually get paid cash when you buy gas with the Upside app?
Yes, I earn cash back just for buying the gas I was already buying.
Does that actually add up to anything?
I'll make $200 to $300 this year.
Wow, that's serious extra cash. I'm downloading the Upside app now.
Download the free Upside app now in the App Store or Google Play and start earning cash back on everyday gas purchases. Use promo code RIDER for a 25 cents per gallon bonus on your first tank. That's up to 50 cents per gallon on your next fill up. You can cash out anytime, right to your bank account or a gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code RIDER for a 25 cents per gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code RIDER. Code RIDER.
Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions.
A 15-year-old girl who chewed through a rope to escape a serial killer.
I used my front teeth to saw on the rope in my mouth.
The killer prowled the Pacific Northwest in the early 70s. He's been convicted of murdering 2 young women, but suspected of many more.
Maybe there's another one in that area.
Follow and binge all episodes of Stolen Voices of Dole Valley, available now wherever you listen.
Who is Farm Bureau Financial Services? At our core, we're relationship builders. We're home and auto bundlers, life insurers, farm and ranch protectors, and retirement planners. We're neighbors, community members, and friends. We're the people you can count on now and for years to come. Find a Farm Bureau agent at fbfs.com/protect. Farm Bureau Property and Casualty Insurance Company, Western Agricultural Insurance Company, Farm Bureau Life Insurance Company.
Did you know bad bacteria causes cavities and tooth decay? Did you know bad bacteria feed off residue left by sugary foods and drinks? Keep your family healthy. Your smile matters.
Be sure to brush 2 times daily for at least 2 minutes with fluoride toothpaste.
Floss once a day and limit sugary foods and drinks like sweetened juices, candies, and sodas.
Even sugar-free carbonated drinks can be harmful to teeth. Be sure to visit your dentist for regular checkups and cleanings. If you don't have a dentist, visit YourSmileUtah.org for more information on community dental services. This message is brought to you by Utah Oral Health Coalition, Utah Dental Association, University of Utah School of Dentistry, the Utah Department of Health and Human Services, and other Utah health partners. Remember, a healthy smile means a healthier life. Learn more at YourSmileUtah.org.
Because your smile matters.
Before a disaster turns your family's world upside down, it's up to you to be ready. Get a kit, make a plan, be informed. Learn how at www.ready.gov. Brought to you by the Federal Emergency Management Agency and the Ad Council.
The new Inside Sources.
We're continuing to unpack the shockwaves from Washington's dramatic capture of former now Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, what it means for Venezuela's future. And there have been so many angles to this, Holly. There's the legal part of it, there's the political part of it, there's the immigration part of it, and there's there's the national, local, and international reaction to it, most of which is in favor of getting rid of Nicolas Maduro by hook or crook. But some people are saying, well, maybe the crook part of it wasn't so smart.
Well, I think it's interesting, right, that the last several guests have talked about the concern about what happens next, right? They're glad Maduro is not in anymore, but they're really worried that his people are still there and they're still in power, and that's a concern for them. So we have with us Kirk Hawkins. He's a professor of political science at BYU who focuses on Latin American politics. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Hawkins.
Happy to join you.
Well, I'm hoping you can shed additional insight on the capture of Nicolas Maduro and what you think this might mean internationally.
Wow. Well, like you, and I just heard you talking about this, we're still really unsure about what the next moves are. Trump's talked about boots on the ground, but we don't have any there right now. This was a quick in and out thing they did. And so it's not clear really what leverage we have over the Venezuelan government right now, the interim president. And without that leverage, to talk about what it means to run the country, that's not really clear to me how far that go or what that's really going to mean in practice. I think Secretary of State Marco Rubio was a little more realistic when he talked about how really the leverage we have right now is kind of the same we had before, which is the leverage that comes from the ongoing the kind of the oil embargo and the restraints we have on the tankers coming out of Venezuela.
Maduro couldn't have had the power that he had without the support of a large member of the political and maybe military community in Venezuela. Those groups are still in place, which makes me wonder, Professor Hawkins, whether or not there is really optimism for change. What do you expect will happen in Venezuela? And I know this is a terrible question, in the next 6 months or year.
Wow. Yeah, I think we're like the Venezuelan government. We're waiting to see, really what are the next moves by the Trump administration? What else will they do to make good on some of these threats that he's made after this action? And certainly the threats sound more credible now after what was a significant move by the administration to send in these commandos and to carry out this operation. That's not a small thing. That's a pretty big signal. At the same time, realistically, what does it mean? I don't know. So I think we're waiting to see. We're waiting to see whether the Venezuelan government, the interim president right now, is really going to soften somehow and respond to these kinds of overtures by the Trump administration. And I don't know. I mean, as you say, the government is still a lot of hardliners there, and they're real true believers in what Hugo Chavez started back in 1999, and trying to carry on that work. The interim president is known as someone who's a little more moderate, but I don't know, her ability to manage the economy successfully, that's a really good thing, and Venezuela needed that. But I don't know that means she's suddenly going to work with the Trump administration in the way that they're talking right now. I don't know that I see that happening. It's still hard to see what kind of leverage the Trump administration has, real leverage beyond its threats to constrain Venezuela's ability to export oil, except maybe on our terms. And even our terms aren't clear. Trump has said very general, vague things about running the country or its oil industry. I don't know what that means in practice. The U.S. oil industry already has a presence in Venezuela. Chevron's been there for a little while. So I'm not sure what else it will mean. So really, I don't know. I don't know what the next 6 months will mean.
Well, first of all, I think your class discussions this week will be really good. Do you go back to school this week?
We do. Yeah, Wednesday. We'll see if the topic comes up.
Yeah, we'll see. I do have a question about, especially since you're an expert in Latin American politics, President Trump has indicated that Mexico, Cuba, Colombia, and Greenland should all be on notice, right? Is this going to just destabilize some of the regional politics? What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, I think it was illustrative what President Sheinbaum said in Mexico, which was, well, this is the way Trump talks. And at least outwardly, she's saying, no, look, this is business as usual. I'm not letting this affect what I do, or with what are really reasonably positive relations that she has right now with the Trump administration. And so I hear these threats and I think, well, in practice, I don't know what that means. These are pretty blunt tools he's offering to use. I don't know how it solves, say, the drug cartel problem in Mexico to threaten to extract President Sheinbaum. I don't know what that means. That would solve nothing. The threats mean probably a little more when we talk about a place like Cuba. I do start to wonder if an emboldened Trump would say, "Wow, what could we accomplish with these tools in Cuba, a place where the leader means a lot." And again, as in Venezuela, I don't know that it sort of solves a lot going down the road, because you've still got a whole Communist Party of Cuba that is running the country. It's not just one person. But in some places, this threat seems to make a little more sense as a policy tool. But again, I just don't know how far this really goes. It's a pretty blunt tool.
Professor Hawkins, what can you tell our listeners about the Machado's opposition party? Are they still popular there? If there are free and fair elections in Venezuela, thanks to the United States coming in and sort of forcing this, do you think that that's a party that will still perform well as they did last time in the last election?
It's funny, but things could get a little different or funny if elections were held, but in an environment in which the current government and its party, the United Socialist Party of Venezuela, wasn't allowed to participate or to run the election in the same way. In other words, you might not be looking just at one opposition candidate, which in the past would be the obvious person to vote for and would be the one that would win in a reasonably free and fair election, which isn't what happened. But we know that, that person is the one who won. But in a new situation, you might actually see the opposition fragment. They've been working together pretty tightly because they have this powerful government that they're opposing, and they've been kind of forced to do that. But there have been a lot of times when it's been difficult for them to maintain that kind of unity. There are some different ideological currents among the opposition. It's not just one party. There are several. And Maria Corina Machado is certainly a very important leader of the opposition right now, but she's not the only one. There are others that are still in Venezuela, and they don't always see eye to eye. So actually, in a really free and fair election where the United Socialist Party of Venezuela didn't just control the whole thing, I wonder if you actually might see things sort of fragment, maybe in a good way, in a real democratic way with multiple candidates and options appearing. I don't know if that's an unhealthy thing, but it does. It makes it a little more complicated and interesting to think about.
It certainly does. Thank you very much. That was Kirk Hawkins, professor of political science at Brigham Young University, focusing on Latin American politics. And it is going to be interesting, Holly, to see, not the least of which, what happens in Venezuela, but what happens with other countries. Trump has alluded to Colombia ought to be on the lookout, Mexico maybe, and Cuba, I think he used the words, is about to fall.
It's about to fall.
Cuba is certainly in the crosshairs. Not to mention going to Greenland. We hopefully don't have to go there anytime soon. In terms of talking about what the administration may do, but the domino effect of this could be huge, and I think Professor Hawkins probably has a lot more to say about that if we'd had a little more time. But Venezuela, that was a operation that was so well planned and so well organized, and he was a figure that it was so unpopular worldwide and even within his own country that people are willing to overlook the legalities of it and say, let's get rid of this man, whatever it costs, and let's hope that Venezuela can have some a good future because it's a wonderful country by all accounts. When we come back after the break, a former candidate for Utah Attorney General has admitted to attempting to bribe an opponent. We will get to the details of that after the break.
It's 11:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Cameron Elliott. KSL's top national story this hour. From ABC News, the judge overseeing the trial of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has affirmed his commitment to administer the normal process of judgment despite the high profile and extraordinary nature of the case. ABC's Aaron Katursky reports.
The judge did not want this to turn into any kind of a spectacle, and he wanted to keep this as ordinary as is possible. Despite the extraordinary circumstances of how Nicolas Maduro got here, he is now being treated like every other criminal defendant in the dock here at Manhattan Federal Court.
Other national stories KSL is following. Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth says Arizona Democratic Senator Mark Kelly will likely face a demotion in the U.S. Navy for taking part in a video that urged troops to ignore illegal orders.
It's an administrative action that's short of a court-martial. It will likely see Mark Kelly losing his rank as a retired Navy captain and would result in a reduction in his military pension. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says the senator will have 30 days to submit a response and that, quote, further violations could result in further action. Kelly was among Democratic members of Congress, veterans of the armed forces and intelligence community, who urged troops to ignore illegal orders in what Hegseth calls a reckless and seditious video.
ABC's Stephen Portnoy is reporting. Your money at this moment, the Dow is up 784 points or 1.62% today. Coming up, it's a gray old day here in Salt Lake City with light rain across the valley. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 11:31.
A reminder about the simplest way to get updated for your day.
Hit your KSL preset when you jump in the car, and we'll take care of the rest.
Hear key news updates and traffic reports.
Andy and Amanda from 5 to 9 in your car.
KSL News Radio at 102.7 FM.
At Trio South Ogden, the best years aren't behind you. They're right here. Discover independent living services that embrace aging as an opportunity to lean in, not step back. To pursue passions, not retire from purpose. Here, life is bright, colorful, and unapologetically fun. Because aging doesn't mean changing who you are. It means having more time to be exactly who you are. Schedule your tour today at triosouthodogden.com.
If you're struggling with your mortgage, there's a free government program that offers expert one-on-one advice about your mortgage options. Call 1-888-995-HOPE or visit makinghomeaffordable.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Treasury, HUD, and the Ad Council.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by My Style Checking from Mountain America Credit Union. Here's Ricky Meese. We'll check back in with Ricky in just one moment. The weather right now, expect a roller coaster this week as we see highs in the high 40s and lows in the low 50s until Thursday, when we see the temperature drop to the 30s with some accompanying snow. Right now it's 43 degrees, light rain. We're going to take a look at traffic in just a second. I'm Cameron Elliott from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com, where Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
The all-new Inside Sources. Your inside access to the people and policies shaping Utah's future. Here are Greg Skordas and Holly Richardson on KSL News Radio.
2024 brought us a Attorney General's election, Holly, where the incumbent, Sean Reyes, had decided not to run for re-election. That left for a group of Republicans to jump into the race.
Right.
I think there were probably 4 or 5. One of the more popular candidates jumping into that was Frank Mylar. And during the course of that election, he did the following. This was during they were going through the conventions and going through some of the county conventions. He contacted Trent Christensen, who was at the time also a candidate for Utah Attorney General. And Mylar sent him a text message which said this: "If you could endorse me before the convention, I would definitely include you in my office." Now, based on that, he was charged by the Salt Lake County District Attorney's Office with bribery. And in fact, there is a crime that provides that if you bribe a fellow candidate or a candidate for a political office to either jump in or jump out of a race by promising them something in return, that can be a crime. And in this case, they did charge it, bribery in elections, a third-degree felony, indicating at the time that the DA felt that Frank Mylar committed that felony by actually bribing another candidate to stay in or get out of the race. Mylar did respond after, so Christensen didn't respond to that. He didn't give any response. Mylar sent a follow-up that said, "Oops, please disregard that text. I'm internal," whatever that means. "I didn't mean to send it. Sorry to bother you. It's not an offer, etc. Hope you're feeling well." And then sent a couple more texts apologizing and indicating that he thought Christensen had withdrawn from the race. Christensen then reported this to the Murray City Police Department, and the District Attorney's Office filed felony charges against candidate Mylar. I hope I've explained that well.
You have explained it, and I think it would be interesting to talk about like what that means and what the consequences were, because I actually was a little bit surprised. It felt like it was a little light, maybe.
What do you mean? Light?
Like he can't run for office for a year.
Oh, you mean his sanction?
Yeah.
Okay, right. Yeah.
Because
so
he just pled,
yeah,
right?
That's why we're talking about.
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely. So yeah, he gets charged with a felony in 2024. Here we are, probably 18 months later. The crime is
almost 2 years, because convention is early, like in the springish.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah. The crime is alleged to have occurred on April 19th of 2024. Last Friday, he appeared before a district court judge here in Utah and entered a guilty plea to a lesser charge. And let me explain it a little bit. Bribery is a third-degree felony, and in Utah, an attempt to commit a crime reduces the level of the crime by 1 degree. So he pled guilty to attempted bribery,
Okay.
which made the felony a Class A misdemeanor. That makes sense. So
Okay.
if you plead to an attempt, it reduces the crime by 1 step. So he pleads guilty to an attempted bribery. But further, and this goes to your question, it's what we call a plea in abeyance. In other words, the plea is held over his head. It's not entered on his record and won't be entered on his record so long as he complies with the terms of the plea in abeyance agreement, which you just mentioned were one of those was a very odd term, which is that he agreed not to run for political office. I've never seen that in a...
Only for a year, though.
Right, yeah, because the plea in abeyance only lasts a year. So the plea in abeyance is for a year. The court has its hooks in him for a year. They can't do anything after that because the court has no jurisdiction. He can do anything he wants. You know what I mean?
That's interesting.
But I don't know how you can say somebody can't run for political office. I mean, you can disqualify them based on a conviction of a crime, or they don't live in the city, or that the jurisdiction. Right. But just to make that a condition of a criminal charge.
But the plea in abeyance is basically this is going to go away if you keep your nose clean for a year, right?
Right. So you admit the crime, you plead guilty, but the court by definition doesn't accept the plea. The judge says, no, I'm just going to hold that plea over your head. And if you do all of these things, I will let you withdraw the plea and we'll dismiss the case in a year. And all those things were stay out of trouble for a year and agree not to run for political office for a year. If he does those two things, and I assume that Mylar, who by all accounts is a very, very good attorney, has already suffered pretty extensively as a result of this. I'm sure he has no prior criminal history. So I know you feel like the result was a bit light, considering it started out with a felony bribery. But I think under the circumstances, the district attorney's office took into fact that he backed out of it almost immediately after he sent the bribe. Let's face it, on its face, it clearly was a bribe.
Well, that's another question that I have. It feels like, for me, when I think bribery, I think cash, right? Here's cash, right? And so in this instance, it was the offer of a job.
Right.
And that's considered bribery, right? It's not, I guess I just was a little confused that offering somebody a job could be considered bribery.
Yeah, and in fact, the Utah Code says that it's bribery to give, offer, or promise any office, place, or employment to get another person to jump out of the race. So an offer of a job is a bribery if your intent is to get that person to support you or to get out of the race. So he's looking for Republican, and at the time, Mylar seems to have been, if you read between the lines here, he was the front runner. He was doing very well. He was coming out of the conventions very well. Of course, we know Derek Brown ultimately won the race, but Mylar was doing well at the local level, and he was trying to garner support. So he goes to another candidate saying, hey, you're not doing so well, basically. Support me, and I'll give you a job. You cannot do that. You just absolutely cannot do that.
Yeah.
Even though it happens more than you think.
What if he had changed it and said, if you could endorse me before convention, I would definitely consider including you. The same thing?
Yeah, I think that's the same problem.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Instead of offering a job, I would consider offering you a job.
Yeah, if you could endorse me before the convention, I would definitely include you in my office. I think once you say, if you could endorse me, I will blank, you're in trouble.
But he could have said, hey, I'd really like your support. I think I'm doing really well in convention, and I think I have the votes. I don't think you do. Would you stand on stage and support me?
Absolutely.
That's totally different.
That's totally fine. You just can't give him some quid pro quo for doing that, such as a job or, like you said, money.
Yeah.
So you can say, I need your support. I need your endorsement. I would really love to have that, period. But if you say, and in exchange for that, I'll give you something else, that's where the bribery comes in. Because there's got to be a quid pro quo.
Yeah.
If you just say, hey, will you support me? We get those calls every day, you and I.
You know, one of the yeah, that's true, actually. One of the things that's interesting to me is that when the story first came out, July of 2024, so this would have been after the primary was over, that he was like, absolutely not guilty. This is Mylar's stance, not guilty. I'm going to fight it. There's no way that there's any truth to this story, right? I deny all the allegations. And then he pled guilty.
Right. Well, the problem that he had was he sent it in a text. Had there been a phone call and,
That
then
was
you
not
say,
recorded.
You know, he said, she said, hey, I didn't really mean it. That's not what I said. But it's a text message. And so if you look at the police reports, which I'm looking at here, the police actually went and got they got a search warrant for Christensen's phone number and found that, in fact, he had that very text from Mylar. So the defendant, they
were
found
able to say
the
it's
text.
right here.
So it's one of those things you people don't realize. A text is, people think of a text as like a conversation.
Yep.
But it's like a letter. It's in writing, and it exists forever.
Yeah. You know, there's a whole conversation about that. And when I served on the State Records Committee, that was one of the things that was like constant. Is this a record or is this a conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have a conversation that's not recorded, that's not a public record. But texts are, at least to our purposes now, considered public record.
People have been asking me what was Mylar thinking when he did this. And my response, I think, is because I don't think he's a bad man or an evil man or was attempting to bribe. I don't know that he thought it out very well. He's just talking to another candidate saying, boy, if I could get rid of this guy, I could win this race. So, hey, I'll take care of you. You take care of me.
Mm-hmm.
Boom. I'm sure as soon as he hit send, he thought, what did I just do? Which is why he responds later on saying, I didn't mean to send it. That was internal. I don't know what that means. Disregard the text. It was not an offer. Hope you're feeling better. You know, like, oops. You're trying to get out of it as soon as possible, because I think a cooler head prevailed at that point. And he realized that he'd done something that he shouldn't have.
So I was at the state convention, and he actually won the delegate support from the state convention, and not outright. So he advanced to a primary with Rachel Terry, but Derek Brown came in third at convention, but he collected signatures to get on the primary ballot, and of course we know Derek won overall. But I think both Frank Mylar and Rachel Terry were trying to out-conservative each other, and I would argue Derek Brown is very conservative, but to a certain subset of delegates within the Republican Party, sometimes it really is the most outlandish claims that you can make, right, that seem to be popular, and they don't always translate to the general public.
That's unfortunate what happens with both parties in Utah. You've got to get through your base before you get to the rank and file into the voters. I would say this, just to close the door here. A plea in abeyance is not a conviction.
Yeah.
He won't have anything on his record. If he completes the terms of the plea in abeyance for a year, stays out of trouble, doesn't run for office, there's no fine, no fee, no community service, no jail, nothing like that. Just good behavior, don't run for office. He can withdraw the plea at the end of that period, have his plea withdrawn, and have the case dismissed, and he can get it expunged or whatever. But so he can say today he doesn't have a conviction, and he doesn't have a conviction.
There's one other interesting part about this plea. He has to accept 2 pro bono cases.
Yes.
I thought that was interesting too.
Yeah, so
well, I don't know if it's good for him. It's good for the judge.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing to include, and he probably wanted that in there as well. So hopefully that we've all learned something from this, and we don't have long-term consequences from something like this. Because again, he's a good lawyer and was a very capable candidate for that position. That's something that may haunt him for a long time. I don't know whether the bar will do anything. My guess is probably not.
Look, when we come back, we have some news that just broke while we were doing the show. Amid all the other breaking news, the Pentagon is seeking to demote retired Navy captain and Arizona Democratic Senator Mark Kelly for his part in a video in which members of Congress who served in the armed forces urged troops to disregard illegal orders, which is actually in their oath. And we'll have more about that when we come back after the break.
If you're ready to buy a home or sell a home and you're worried about the current real estate market because of what you've heard from some of your friends or family, well, we're here to tell you that you really shouldn't be worried, because now is a great time to buy and sell with our friends at the Stern Team, powered by Almada Real Estate.
And here's why. Buyers have more options due to increased inventory, which gives them the power to negotiate for repairs, interest rate buy-downs, and closing cost assistance. While at the same time, sellers are still getting top dollar for their homes, with home values that are higher today than ever before. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, the current real estate market presents a win-win opportunity for both buyers and sellers.
But you still do want to make sure that you're working with a team of real estate experts you can trust that can get you some great results. And that's our friends at the Stern Team, powered by Almada Real Estate.
They have helped thousands of Salt Lake City homeowners, and they're ready to help you. To get started, just go to thesternteam.com. That's thesternteam.com, or Google The Stern Team.
Right now, we are looking at our traffic, our KSL traffic right now. If you're traveling on I-15, things are looking pretty good. We do have one crash. This is at 123rd South in Draper. It's moved over to the right-hand shoulder. We've had a lot of slide-offs today. We have one on southbound I-15 in Payson right now. That slid off the road. So just be careful out there. It is slick and wet. If you're up in the canyons right now, there still is going to be some snow on some of the roadways. On Highway 40, I'm seeing a lot of snow, or a lot of traffic through that area, and it looks pretty snowy. And if you're coming out of Tooele County and on the 201 freeway or I-80, or if you're on Mountain View Corridor or Bangerter Highway, all of those are moving good right now if you're traveling into downtown Salt Lake City. I'm Aubrey Withrich in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL offers the best daily newsletter in the state. It's the 3 things you need to know. Every weekday, we deliver quality and relevant content to your inbox. No ads, no spam, just the 3 things you need to know to be informed about the world around you. Subscribe today. Visit KSLNewsRadio.com or text the word inbox to 57500. That's inbox to 57500.
This is Derek Miller speaking on business. The Federal Reserve System conducts monetary policy through 12 regional banks, each serving a specific area. Utah is in the 12th Federal Reserve District. San Francisco Federal Reserve Vice President and Regional Executive of the Salt Lake City branch, Abby McLennan, joins us with more.
The Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco serves the 9 western states, including Utah, as well as 2 territories and a Commonwealth. Together, they make up the 12th district, the largest district in the Federal Reserve System. The Salt Lake City branch covers the entirety of Utah, southern Idaho, and northeastern Nevada. We support price stability and full employment, safe banking, and secure payment systems. A big part of our work is processing cash. That means ensuring currency is fit for circulation and there when you need it. We also maintain trusted relationships with workers, businesses, and community groups. The information and data we gather from local contacts helps shape monetary policy decisions and ensures the economic experiences of Utahns are represented. Whether it is economic research or community engagement and outreach, our work at the San Francisco Fed helps support a strong economy for all Americans.
The Federal Reserve strengthens Utah's economy by supporting stable prices, safe banking, and reliable payment systems. Through local research, community engagement, and outreach, they help Utah families and businesses thrive. Learn more at frbsf.org. I'm Derek Miller with the Salt Lake Chamber, speaking on business.
When it comes to vaping, the truth can get clouded. So let's make it clear. Vaping is not safe for kids, teens, or young adults. It's just not.
Because vaping can put microscopic particles into your lungs.
And dangerous things like metals and volatile organic compounds into your body.
And nicotine, the same highly addictive substance found in regular cigarettes.
Nicotine can harm a person's brain development through their mid-20s.
Affecting learning, memory, attention, and impulse control, and priming the brain for other addictions.
Vaping products also come in kid-friendly flavors that can make them appealing to youth.
And many kids also use other drugs, like marijuana, in vaping devices.
With appealing flavors, high nicotine levels, and lots of promotion on social media,
many kids think vaping is harmless, but it's not.
So talk to your kids about the risks of vaping, because when you talk, they hear you.
For more information, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Inside Sources.
You might recall that in November of last year, Arizona Senator Mark Kelly, along with at least one other senator and 3 representatives, sent a notice to U.S. military members that they can refuse illegal orders, but they didn't specify which orders the Trump administration may have issued. They urged service members to actually refuse unlawful orders. Now, the Pentagon is seeking to demote Senator Kelly for his part in that, and they're trying to take away part of his benefits is
part of his retirement.
Right.
And you know what's interesting about this story is it feels particularly targeted towards Mark Kelly, and he feels that too, because we already know that under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, members are required to obey lawful orders, but they cannot say, my commander ordered me to do this unlawful act, and so I complied. That actually, they are deliberately expressly prohibited from following illegal orders, which is what these 5 members were saying in their video.
And that's actually in the Code of Military Conduct.
Right.
Here's more from ABC News national correspondent Stephen Portnoy, who explains this.
A formal censure letter from the Defense Secretary accuses Mark Kelly of undermining good order and discipline in the military, amounting to conduct unbecoming an officer. Pete Hegseth says he's opening a proceeding to reduce Kelly's rank as captain and his pension. In a statement, the Arizona senator vows to fight any demotion with, quote, everything I've got, adding that he aims to send a message that the defense secretary and the president don't get to decide what Americans say about their government.
You know, what's interesting is if they do follow an illegal order, and as I understand it, and I remember our conversation from the fall, excuse me, that part of this clarification that service members cannot follow illegal orders without being held responsible. They can be court-martialed, but it came from the Vietnam War or conflict, right, where we had American troops killing civilians, right, and we learned about that afterwards. But that was the context, and so it's interesting to me that now Mark Kelly is facing a demotion. He already got a formal letter of censure. It was issued this morning. And there is a process, and Hegseth is following the process, at least of allowing him to appeal, which is what Senator Kelly is saying, I'm going to appeal with everything I've got, right? Because this sends a chilling message to service members, retired or not, that if you say something that Pete Hegseth or the current president disagrees with, they're going to come after you.
Yeah, in fact, what Kelly said was this: it's outrageous and it is wrong. There is nothing more un-American than that. And this is from the senator as well. If Pete Hegseth, the most unqualified Secretary of Defense in our country's history, thinks he can intimidate me with a censure or threats to demote me or prosecute me, he still doesn't get it. So Kelly's not going away without a fight.
He's not, and I think with good reason, right? I mean, they're calling his behavior seditious. That's a bad thing, right? Sedition is bad, and it can be punishable, I think, by jail time for sure. I don't know that we execute people anymore for sedition.
No, but if you consider the Code of Military Conduct, my understanding is that what he was saying was, you have this code, you can follow it. You don't have to follow an illegal order.
Yeah, and they did not point out this had to do with the bombing boats in the Caribbean, right? That's actually part of the whole discussion of Venezuela that we've had today. But they didn't specify that in their video. They just basically said, look, you don't have to follow illegal orders. And the reason they're going after Mark Kelly and not the other people in the video is that they are no longer part of their branches, whatever they served in. One of them was a former CIA agent. But Mark Kelly retired, which makes him technically still part of the Navy.
Yeah, so they could do something to him. They can censure him. They could take money out of his pocket, where the others, there's nothing they can do in terms of
they're no longer
their
part of that military
benefits.
Branch. Yeah.
You know, it was a odd thing that they sent out, but I can also understand saying to U.S. military members, hey, you have the right to refuse orders. I mean, certainly if a commander told you to go rob a bank because they needed some money for the Christmas party, you could refuse that order and you would have no problem with that. But that's a more straightforward response to this. What they were trying to say was the administration may be asking you to do some things that you might feel are illegal, and if you do, you have the right to disobey those.
I want to talk a little bit more about Mark Kelly's official response, right? So this is Senator Kelly. You mentioned that he called Pete Hegseth the most unqualified Secretary of Defense in our country's history, but he also started by detailing the amount of military service he has. Over 25 years in the U.S. Navy, 39 combat missions, 4 missions to space. He says, I risked my life for this country and to defend our Constitution, including the First Amendment rights of every American to speak out. And then he says, I never expected that the President of the United States and the Secretary of Defense would attack me for doing exactly that. And then he reminds people that his rank and retirement are things he earned through service and sacrifice for the country. He got shot at. He missed holidays and birthdays. He commanded a space shuttle mission while my wife, Gabby, this is Gabby Gifford, by the way, recovered from a gunshot wound to the head, all while proudly wearing the American flag on my shoulder.
Yeah, I think it's unlikely that any request or suggestion of demoting Mark Kelly or taking away his rank as a captain or his pension or anything like that is going to face a huge uphill battle by the administration. Maybe this is a message, or maybe who knows where it's going. But I can't imagine that Senator Kelly has to worry about that, except that he is worrying about it because they're threatening to do it.
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's not just threatening. They have started the proceedings. It's just that it takes 30 days. For him to be able to respond, and within 45 days, they will have a decision on whether they're going to demote him and cut his retirement pay.
Yeah, it's too bad this was such a over response to what was happening here, and I don't know whether it was unfortunate that the military members and former military members sent it out in the first place. It did cause a lot of us to cringe, but on the other hand, I think they were trying to tell people, hey, you have certain rights.
Well, we've talked a lot today about messages and what we just really what message are we sending, and was that intentional? We're getting to the end of today's show, and look, tomorrow we're also going to talk about Venezuela, because
right.
I want to talk about the Monroe Doctrine, which is not a 2-minute conversation.
Right.
So we're going to pivot for the last couple of minutes. I want to talk just a little bit about what today is. So today's January 5th. It's National Day of Dialogue. And it's a lesser known holiday. They all are, actually. But it really is this growing recognition that we need to be able to talk to each other, even if we disagree politically, even if we're disagree on our religion, the way we worship, those types of things. That literally there's a day where we're supposed to recognize that. And I will point our listeners to an article in the Deseret News about Governor Cox, and it actually is published in Deseret Magazine, but really about his message of disagree better, and then the Charlie Kirk killing. Right. And there was information I learned from reading that hadn't been shared in other news stories about how he learned and when he learned and how he needed to inform the White House that it was fatal. Right. Those types of things. So I would recommend that to our listeners.
And given the significance of all of that, it's surprising that we didn't know more that today was the day of dialogue, because it's such a critical time in our country to engage in dialogue, as Spencer Cox has said.
Okay. There's a couple of other on this day in history that I want to share. So on this day in 1531, Pope Clement VII forbade King Henry VIII from remarrying. We know the rest of that story, don't we?
Right, yeah.
Right? He's like, fine, I don't need you. I'll start my own church.
Oh, right. Yes.
That was Henry VIII. And his wives, a whole bunch of his wives died. They lost their heads. On this day in 1781, Benedict Arnold captured and destroyed Richmond, Virginia. That is sad. On this day in 1914, and this is a really big deal, the Ford Motor Company established an 8-hour workday and set a daily minimum wage of $5.
Whoa.
I know, right? 1914.
$5?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, a daily wage.
A daily wage.
Oh, not an hourly wage.
Right.
Interesting.
A daily wage.
Well, that's good that we started that conversation. What you say, 1914? Well, that was an interesting day. It's so much that happened over the weekend. We tried to cover that. We're going to follow up a little bit with that tomorrow. What a way to start the new year! And that's it